And welcome to a brand new life, to a brand new day, all the way from the wastelands of California. My name is Michael, and I'm a mere figment of your imagination. I look forward to once again serve you those sounds of salvation. First time listeners, turn on, tune in, and drop out. This is a very different kind of show, a place where we don't feel so alone. Let us chase away the light no matter what you at home choose to believe. I do admire you for your curiosity. My guest this evening is Bernie Taylor. He is an independent naturalist, thought leader, and author whose research explores the mythological connections and biological knowledge among prehistoric, indigenous, and ancient peoples. He is also the author of the books Biological Time and Before Orion, Finding the Face of the Hero. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for allowing me into your hearts and into your minds. Here we are again on a night like this. Good evening to you out there, wherever you are. Feels right under pale moonlight. We have yet another full house. And on the second half, Michael Baker joins us, the sedated man. No doubt you should stick around. I think you'll like what I've got in store for you. And also, please do remember, you too can get involved. Your phone calls are always welcome. Don't hesitate to call in. That number is 760-332-8724. Don't be afraid to state your name when you first dial in. That number is 760-332-8724. Now let's get down to brass tacks and bring in our first soul. Michael, are you alive? Is that you, Michael? Oh, Bernie, I'm
Bernie.
sorry. I wasn't calling you, Michael. There's also another Michael here. I apologize. Bernie, are you alive and well?
I'm doing good.
Yes. How's it going, my friend? Welcome aboard.
Well, life is good. I'm here in sunny Oregon. It's a little on the cold side, but we've got sun and the weather seems to pass. And we were talking earlier that I spent the day in court, and that I was not exactly acquitted, but I wasn't charged either. And my daughter was doing mock trials, kids battling against each other using the rules of the law, and each side twisting the truth to win the competition. And fortunately, my daughter's going to be a scientist and not a lawyer, because boy, that's a nasty world.
It really is. That's where they teach you how to lie in style.
Yeah, lie, cheat, and steal. And it's all supposed to be in play, but hopefully what a lot of these kids walk out of this is say, if you ever have a problem, get a good lawyer. But in life itself, you choose the path that you lead. And do you want to lead the path of the manipulation, is the question to be had. And I hope a lot of those kids walked away and say, this was all fun, but I want to do something. I want to be better in life. In Japan, they actually don't have many lawyers. It's considered a disgrace if you go to a lawyer.
Really?
It's more, but they have a lot of arbitrators, people who do like intermediaries. And the concept is, if you go to court, you've already lost. If you haven't been able to resolve the situation. Whereas in our country, people look for lawsuits just to get attention. And of course, we know number one guy who's looking for attention through lawsuits, right? His whole life.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. What he's called person number one.
That's true. And Bernie, you never admit to a lie, or else you'll be a liar.
Exactly. Yes. Yeah. Exactly.
Definitely let your daughter know that one.
Exactly. Life is great here in Oregon. We have an incredible show ahead of us. We're going to talk about the big stuff, the
Oh, yes.
questions of eternity, and we're going to dive into some stuff today that ask me the questions you've always been afraid to ask. Because today we're going to open up the Teacher's Edition book to humanity.
We sure
That
are. And I'm so
34,000 years ago.
no doubt, and I'm so glad you reached out to me, Bernie. I had no idea who you were until you sent me the email. I did my homework, and I was blown away.
Well, I came out of nowhere. I mean, I really came out of nowhere in this alternative world in the podcasts. My book Before Ryan Finding Face the Hero was released in ebook version a year ago, last October, and I didn't really put out stuff until just a year ago, last January. Going a bigger way, and since then I've reached more than 3 million people on long form podcasts, and we, and Joe Rogan's 10 million people, all that sort of stuff, and Sam Harris maybe a million or two.
It's a lot of
But
people.
if we think about this concept going back in 15 years ago, this couldn't have existed. 15 years ago, you had to go through Newsweek or Time or Smithsonian or Discovery Magazine or something to even get out there. But now we have this democratization through the social media, whether it be podcasts or YouTube, Twitter, Instagram, and so forth, that people, if they've got a good message, they've got a good story to tell, you can put it out there, millions of people, and let them decide. It's a complete disruption in the power base of information. Time and Newsweek now are really they're irrelevant. It's what do you get over the internet? But everybody has a lot of information to weed through, and I hope that I'm putting out good information that people can take away and walk in their normal lives.
Yes, and something you said right now resonated with me, and I'm sure you get plenty of email yourself. And some of it actually caused me to have a profound introspective experience. I had not truly contemplated even this role I play simply by just doing the show. I had forgotten that not just me, but all of us play some sort of significant role to someone in this strange, wonderful experience we call life.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sure you yourself have found individuals like that who gravitate towards your work.
Well, I hope so, but
There's got to be.
yeah. And that's a good thing because I've taken my hero's journey. At the end of the hero's journey, one returns back to tell the story.
Right.
Was it the story of the first book of The Hobbit was there and back again? Um, and so I've gone there and I've come back again. And the essence is to share my story, to share what I've learned. And that is what the hero does in all the great myths. And in all these great myths, they return back with a story powerful enough to set society free. But society is never free from the stories we tell, and we retell these same myths and these same stories, and they resonate with people, but deep in the unconscious. So you can't just walk. We're going to talk about a lot of incredible subjects today, things that are unimaginable 2 years ago, and people. Some of it's going to be in your head. You're going to walk away with songs you'll be singing. Some of it's going to be the next time you open a book or watch a movie, you're going to walk away with, oh my God, that's what it means. And that's the essence of what we're going to do today is we're going to delve deep into the collective unconscious, and draw back the archetypal images that are
That's
shared
yeah,
among us all.
Bernie. That's actually what I was experiencing right now. Right when I was opening up the show, I was hearing multiple voices because
Mhm.
I forgot to mute different lines on this mixer here. So again, I apologize for that. You didn't hear anyone say anything, did you?
No.
Okay,
How many
perfect.
voices, Michael, how many voices did you hear?
I heard one or
That's a joke. It's a joke.
yeah, but I heard one or two, and it crossed into the mixer here, and it
Okay.
completely freaked me out. But I apologize if anyone did hear another voice. I don't want you to think you're going crazy. Yes, just had to warn people there. And of course, I am genuinely interested in what people are into and what motivates them. And I'm interested in your background before we jump into all these subjects. And I'm interested to see how you got into this field.
Sure. How did I fall into this?
Right.
Well, for my whole life I've been a naturalist. So when I was a kid, I collected bugs, insects. So the amateur entomologist. And I grew up fishing and spending time in the woods, and in the woods as well. And I came out, grew up on the East Coast, New York metro area. Came out to Oregon in my mid 20s. I'm 54 now, and I became more immersed in the outdoor world. And I wrote a previous book. It was titled Biological Time. And Biological Time sought to answer a very simple question out here in Oregon. We have salmon and we have steelhead. And every year, the salmon steelhead run early, later, from one year to the next. And people, scientists, everybody is, it's the weather, it's the water flow, it's whatever the story is. Or maybe someone is just following one smart salmon. Well, we have multiple species of salmon. When one species is late, the rest of them are late. And so it begged that question. And so I sought that answer and I resolved it in a fabulous way. And it's very simple. Salmon migrate in the darkness and they slow down during the day. Well, the darkness is not of the day, it's also of the night. So around the full moon, the salmon actually slow down. Makes sense. And so if you turn the light on in your home at night, you're going to pop up. The light's going to wake you up. The darkness is just the opposite for the salmon. And so the salmon migrate during the dark nights and slow down during the light nights. Well, the light of the night is the light of the moon. And the moon has a cycle, and it's 29 and a half days. If you divide 29 and a half into 365, you're 11 days short. You're 11 days short. And that means that the full moon, let's say the dark moon, let's say the new moon, hypothetically. The new moon was the big migration moon. Or right around there. That would be January 12th one year, hypothetically, and January 1st the next year. So the reason the salmon were early or later from one year to the next was because the moon, they're tied to lunar and solar cycles, later to their endocrinology, or more commonly called chronobiology, biological clocks. And so that's why the earlier or later. They share two clocks that are not in sync with each other. And when I did that work, I also recognized I'd seen other work that showed that migratory birds and invertebrates and so forth they always found these singular rhythms for these animals. So they laid eggs right around a full moon, or dropped their young, or they migrated up and down, or deal with vertical migration. And there was all these singular events. And I said, well, they can't be just singular events, because the salmon migration ultimately determines when they spawn. And so I actually timed the spawning of the salmon to the moon. And
yes.
I track them out to the ocean as juveniles and back and forth back and forth. And so it was across for all these animals that respond to light dark signals. It was almost across the biological spectrum. And people now use this concept, or scientists use it in protocols for fish and wildlife biology and other people who monitor animals in the wild. And that was done about 13 years ago. And I get presentations at fishery to let's say fish science, fishery science academic groups, state and federal agencies, the tribes, huge in the Pacific Northwest, and that was profoundly influential. And that led me in this direction of where we're going to go tonight.
Oh, yes.
And it led me back to the caves of Europe. Because someone said to me, they said, if Native Americans have this knowledge in their calendars of this, they actually had the calendars of the salmon timing early, later, from the next, maybe Paleolithic man had it, and maybe it's in the caves of Europe. And so I looked at the images in the cave at Lascaux in France from 17,000 years ago. And there's nomenclature, there's grid patterns, and there's dots sequences next to each animal. And they actually, next to each type of animal, the sequences are the same. And that's really important. And it turns out that one can actually look at that sequence, the same numerical concept, and tie it to the Native American calendars, which was exactly the same as the animals. Because the animals haven't changed in 17,000 years. And our Native Americans, their knowledge of animal behavior was on par, if not better, with the Paleolithic cave artists. And so Native Americans had it. They've had it in their culture, and they exercise it through their ceremonies and their fishing, hunting, and practices, but they didn't externalize it to, let's say, the scientific world. And so how did I get into this? Was I was an outdoor person, naturalist, started working on the salmon, expanded the concept to other animals, and then took this sort of academic road of presentations. And this was 13, 14 years ago. We didn't have podcasts as we have today, and
Right.
YouTube was just breaking out. And so if I wanted to speak to a group, I need to get in the car, and haul it across the state. And so that's how I kind of like fell into this place. But we're going to talk about tonight something deeper in time than 17,000 years ago. We're going to go back 34,000 years ago. And we're not just going to talk about the timing of the animals in this cave art. We're going to find about the essence of who we are as people, which is completely profound.
It really is. It truly is. And of course, you were talking about these cave paintings, if I recall, the El Castillo cave, right?
Yeah, before Orion, I covered a few different caves, and the one I do in the podcast and I have most of the YouTube videos about is the El Castillo cave in the Cantabria region of Spain. So we're talking northwestern. The nearest big city that people would know, a big airport, would be Bilbao. And the El Castillo cave, about 7 years ago, was documented with the oldest cave art in the world. And it was a red disc about the size of the palm of your hand. And what had happened was there are limestone walls, and calcium carbonate secretes out of the limestone, becomes a datable substance. When it goes over a human-made image, it then becomes datable, the image. So the image is at least as old as the calcium carbonate.
Did you hit your cat?
Now, being at least as old could be 1 day older, or it could be 1 million years older.
Yes.
That's an important concept. And so this had this red disc that was shown to be the oldest cave art in the world at that time, about 40,000 years old. And the media it was a big deal. I mean, because it had just pushed the dating of cave art back at least 20,000 years, that we could actually reliably date something. But it was just a red disc, and the scientists, there was really no explanation for it. If you had some sparring ibex or a megaloceros or some animals with some action, they could have found meaning in it. But what is a red disc? And it wasn't a very clear red disc either on a panel that was an uneven surface. So the media ran with another panel in the cave system that had a disc that was dated to 34,000 years ago. And this is called the Gallery of Discs. And this is a beautiful image. You have 80 or so discs, about average size of the palm of your hand, running across this 10-meter panel, so about 33 feet. And you're just drawn into these red discs, and that stream right down, so the horizon, the center horizon line, we'll call it. And I looked at that and I said, well, I started counting the discs just like everybody else. We're drawn to these red discs in the same way we're drawn to red lipstick, red cars, DQ, McDonald's, and Burger King signs. The label on Coca-Cola, it's brainstem dominated. We're sucked in at the most basic primitive level. And I don't mean primitive like primitive man, but I mean like primitive lizard. Okay.
Yeah.
And so everybody was drawn into those red discs, and they missed the elephant in the room. And when you had the chance to look at those videos, did you see the elephant in the room?
I did. I did get a chance to see that.
How convinced that there was an elephant? That was an elephant.
I was actually pretty convinced. Actually, I had to go look.
There's four of them.
I had to actually go look at a different source to get more of a high res photo.
Okay.
But it did work out. I did see that.
In fact, it's fascinating because the elephant there's 4 elephants, and 2 of them uses the same ear and the same trunk. So the trunk is up, raised as if it's in distress in one image, and the ear is up. And if you flip it 90 degrees counterclockwise, the trunk is down as it's drinking water, and the ear is back. So the artist was talking about multiple perspectives. The artist was telling us that you've got to look beyond the red disc. You have to see the forest or the trees, or in this case, you have to see the elephant in the savannah.
Right. No
it's a
doubt.
test. I mean, so how do I pass the test? At least begin to pass the test is the big question. So how could I mean, we're talking millions of people had seen this image in the scientific and popular meter. And you can Google on the internet now, gallery of discs, and other than my work and other people that are talking about my work, you won't find any mention of the elephant and the many other characters. Well, I reasoned something. I mean, it was pure reason that 10-meter panel with all this white space and just the red disc in the center. I believe that the artist had a little more to say about that huge canvas. And can you imagine, Picasso, for example, doing a handprint on a 10-meter long canvas with the rest of it white? He wouldn't have done it. And so I started looking for the most common animal in Paleolithic cave art, and that is of a horse, and it's typically a pregnant mare. So I started looking for the mare, and within seconds, I saw the first elephant. And within a minute, I saw two characters: a man speaking to a older man speaking to a younger man. We'll call it the teacher and the apprentice. And then a few minutes later, I saw this lion. It's a lion with a mane, which is unique because all the other Paleolithic cave images that we had found, they have lions, but not lions with mane. And then the elephant, there were elephants in Europe at the time. There was straight-tusked elephant, which had a hump on the top of their head, and these elephants don't have that hump. So I went back to my early 20s. I reached out to someone from my distant past. His name was George Schaller. George Schaller was the mentor to everybody in wildlife biology, Jane Goodall, and so forth. And he is today considered the foremost wildlife biologist. And I met him when I was living in China. And it was through a mutual acquaintance on a Chamber of Commerce type of excursion. And George didn't remember me, but I remember him because a friend said to me, he doesn't like to talk about his work. And, he was in National Geographic that month. He was a bunch of snow leopards climbing over him, and he was in a Rolex ad. So George didn't remember me. I was just a nobody kid,
right,
working in China in the business world. So I contacted George and I said, hey, can you help me to decipher these images and where these animals might be from? Well, that could go different ways, because it's like contacting Tiger Woods and saying, hey, Tiger, can you check out my swing and see if I have potential in golf?
Right.
Tiger could look at your swing and say, hey, maybe shuffleboard is your game.
Right.
Or pinochle, poker or something. Well, this could have gone the same way with George. And, he looked at it, and we went back and forth with a few emails. And then other images started popping out during this conversation. And a year and a half later, and hundreds of emails, we had fundamentally deciphered probably, or actually identified maybe 30 or 40 animals in this panel and dozens in other panels, and animals that had not previously been identified. And what was so unique, we actually, not only did we identify animals, but we identified animals that were indigenous at that time to Europe and to Africa. And we found people that look like, let's say, people from Europe today that are historically from Europe. Okay. And in fact, all the characters in this panel, one would think that they should look like people from Europe today, or indigenous. And so we have these people that had traveled back, and forth to Africa. They had seen these animals, and they came back, and they etched them on the walls of the caves. And it was a showstopper, complete showstopper. And because in archaeology and anthropology prior to my work, the idea was over 20,000 years, people slowly migrated around the Mediterranean. But in fact, people were swimming back and forth across the Strait of Gibraltar, which today is about a 3-hour swim if you're a strong swimmer. So it was a showstopper in humanity's journey. But a bigger showstopper came out as I was finishing my work from other researchers, archaeologists, and paleoarchaeologists. And it involves a place called Jebel Irhoud, and it's in Morocco. And it's a small hill they had started to dig out maybe 20 years ago, and they found remains that were human. They thought maybe some mix of Neanderthals that they later discounted that, dated to maybe 150,000 years ago. But as I was finishing my book, they dated Homo sapien remains to 300,000 years ago, which became the oldest Homo sapien remains in the world that we currently have. And so we've got this story of this man or these people that are traveling back and forth between Europe and Western North Africa, Morocco. And so how distant in time is this story? Well, it's more than 34,000 years ago. And it asked the question of, where do people really come from? Do we come from South Africa, or do we come from Eastern Africa?
Right.
Because that's where people have previously found older fossils. It rewrites history in who we are as a people. And it's startling. And the gravity of the situation is enormous. And the bigger part, the most fascinating part of this, is I didn't even make the original discovery of this cave art. That's the most fascinating part. People had been to these caves for thousands of years, and they have recorded in the records. They recorded in their art. The Phoenicians, the Greeks, the Romans, the Egyptians, everybody had been there, and they wrote about. They actually took the astronomy, they took the artwork, they took the myths, and they told about it, and we have the stories still in our records. And that's the most startling thing of this whole journey that I've taken, is that we've invented nothing. We're reinventing or refinding knowledge that was found in the distant past.
Yeah, nothing new. Nothing new under the sun, as they say.
There's nothing new under the sun. And it's absolutely fascinating. And one of the videos I have out there is about the Big Bang. It's a 2-minute video. BeforeRyan.com on YouTube, spelled out as one word. People can find it.
Definitely.
It talks about
Go ahead.
the cosmic egg and the Big Bang, and it goes into this concept of collective unconscious. So you've had guests on your show, and you've watched YouTube's about the cosmic egg, and people around the world have this myth that people sprung forth from the egg, or that the constellations broke from the egg. Well, we find that exact image on this Paleolithic cave panel. We have all these constellations as the Greeks identified them, and they're all kind of like, the animals are jumbled on top of each other. And they have this man holding the cosmic egg, and we have another man, human character, who's stealing the cosmic egg. And we have the great auk, which the now extinct great auk laid a huge egg, which in fact this cosmic man is holding. Well, in modern science, we recognize the Big Bang as a singularity, but in modern science, it didn't start that way. There were many ideas about the cosmos until Belgian priest Father Lemaitre, I believe it was the 1940s. Father Lemaitre mathematically came up with the hypothesis of a singularity in the cosmos, that there was sort of it all came from one place. And he was ridiculed, and people, told me it was nonsense. And one of the ways they ridiculed, they said, it's just the Big Bang, the orgasmic moment, which is a word we use now in science. Pope Pius XII came out in favor of Lemaitre, and he said, science has proven that there was a singularity, that there was a creation, therefore there must have been a creator. And all the astrophysicists, they all came out against Lemaitre, and because they just said he was just pushing science. Einstein himself said, your mathematics is correct, but your physics is atrocious. And it wasn't until years later that Hubble recognized or observed an expanding universe, or a different movement of stars that appear to be expanding, that Einstein changed his story, and shortly after, the astronomical community jumped on board with this. But Lemaitre had the idea from the cosmic egg. He was mathematically working out a formula of what we would believe is an archaic myth. And so did we really invent anything?
I would have to say we probably did not.
No, we didn't.
Probably not. And it gets really weird, especially when you talk about carbon dating and seeing how old things really are. it all goes back to what I guess we could call forbidden academics. Um, I'm interested to know if there's anything quote unquote forbidden. It seems like certain work doesn't get put out there depending on, um, I guess you could say, political reasons.
Actually, that's a really good question. I'm going to express my experience. My previous work, Biological Time, um, it was solid research, statistically driven, and I was widely received in scientific, academic, and tribal and government circles. And I went around and I didn't blame anybody. I didn't say, you didn't know this, you're an idiot. I didn't say that, you lied and you cheated, you steal, and you're hiding information. I
Right.
went in there and I said, let's share information. Um, and that was the way that I opened the doors and that we had actual discussions. And that was the way that the Fish and Wildlife people actually took me out in the field and they shared more information with me. And they asked me, how can we analyze this differently? And it was a profound experience. And my experience with Before Ryan is not that much different for so-called academic circles. The first presentation I gave, live presentation in front of a group of people, was at professional astronomers um, in Maui. So, it's a vacation trip, but it was an astronomical institute. Okay, so these are all people. This is what they do for a living. And we talked about the cosmic gang, the cave images, and so forth. The second presentation I gave was that was the second one. The first one I gave was at Oregon State to an anthropology department. And I spoke about the North African connection to Europe and the Paleolithic cave art and the animals and so forth. The third presentation I gave was at a progressive Presbyterian church where the minister is an atheist, and we talked. It was on Darwin Day, and I gave a presentation about my view of evolution. And I have one coming up next week in San Diego in Planetary Sciences. So I've been on a lot of science podcasts. I've been on a lot of alternative, non-mainstream podcasts. And what I've learned is that if you go out there and you want to share what you've learned without saying, you're an idiot, you should have known this, and so
Yes.
forth, people will listen. But what I have found, I'm going to tell you right now, there are a few podcasts that will not have me on the show. It's not because they don't believe my information is valid, but it completely contradicts that camp of people that is out there pointing fingers. They're saying, the archaeologists and the Egyptologists and the rest of them, they're hiding it from you. They won't tell you the truth, and they're lying to your kids. And for those podcasts that have that storyline, they will not let me on because I'm telling a different truth than they believe that they've been telling all along.
Yeah.
And so fascinating enough, I received popular support in academic circles, and I would say 80% of the alternative circles, but 20% of them, they will not let me in. And I was invited to give a conference presentation this fall, and when the moderator read my stuff, he uninvited me.
Oh, that quickly, huh?
So this is how I see it. It's that Toyota doesn't promote Honda's work.
Right. Of course not.
Unless it's really, in their interest. They have some combined model, they're sharing a factory. And where in the world of archaeology, anthropology, and so forth, and biology, everybody's competing, to move to the front of the line, to win the race. And I'm competing with them as well. But what I'm coming out and saying, hey, I've got some new information. And so what they're doing is they're tapping into it because now they have a new direction to go in their own publications and presentations and so on. And I'm doing it in such a way that they have so many different directions to go, and it's an exciting time. This is 2019. In the summer of 2020, there's going to be a scientific conference. And it's going to bring together about 25 people in different spheres related to this to talk about this concept of the outward migration from Africa, West North Africa, going back 300,000 years ago, is at the source of it, into Europe and back again. And it's for the people, the academics who are involved in this, it'll be an entirely paid conference, and it'll be 1 week, and where it'll be, hashing out these issues, because you can't shut this down. Because it's there. I put it out to millions of people on the internet, and they all see it and they're saying, "What? Let's now figure out where we can go with this."
Right.
We're not trying to hide the truth. We're trying to find a greater truth. And the most unique part of this is that that greater truth is in the myth of the ancients.
Oh,
It's
yes.
throughout the myths of the Greeks, and through these cave images, we can find, scores of, not scores, at least dozens of Greek characters in the exact same stories. And
Yes. And by the way, I would assume you definitely agree the wealth of evidence that these things aren't the way they are stated in textbooks. This evidence that gets completely shunned.
yes, and so well, a few things about textbooks. Number one for textbooks is that they're all dated. Okay, they're all dated 15 information dated 15, 20 years ago.
Right.
One. Number two is that textbooks are decided by committees. Okay, so in the entire state of Oregon, where I am, all the textbooks are decided by a committee. But the committee is not just the people of a group at Oregon, but there'll be a regional conference because they buy in volume. Okay, so if you're in the southern part of the United States, for example, you're in Alabama, Mississippi, and you're in Louisiana, there's going to be a different conference of book buyers than there's going to be up here in the Pacific Northwest. Okay, and so that sets the tone for what people learn in school. And so, their tone is based on what was, discovered, or was assumed mainstream groupthink 15 years ago, because that's when the textbooks, fundamentally compiled. And so will this information end up in textbooks in the high schools? It's going to be a while, but it doesn't matter because I missed one. I gave a presentation to a high school as well about neurodiversity, the art of being different, and to a scientific after school. Kids came out to a science group. That was another presentation I gave, but as a concept, if you want to reach people, you don't do it through textbooks. You do it through the internet, and I've reached more people in the last year than some primetime TV shows do, in a week, because the power of the podcasts and the internet is profound to spread information. You do not need to go through the textbooks anymore. I haven't been in Ancient Aliens, and they're probably not going to let me on, but
Yes. Let's get into that realm.
They have millions, 2 to 3 million viewers per episode.
It's insane, really, and I did want to get your take on all of that. I always say on this program that Ancient Aliens, going back to 2010, that's when the UFO community did get a shot in the arm and really did hype up the subject tenfold. And now UFOs and extraterrestrials, one of the most popular things around now. And I give all the credit in the world to that program specifically, and a very interesting show. However, there are things in it that, well, I think Bernie, you can agree with me that they sort of exaggerate some of their claims.
So this is what they do, and the Cosmic Egg is a good one. Okay,
right, here we go.
They will have a whole program at the Cosmic Egg, and people around the world have this. And the only way people around the world could have the same myth and have the same archetypal characters and the artifacts is if, well, ancient alien theorists believe blank blank blank, and
right.
Well, there's other explanations. One explanation is we came from the same place, okay, and that the myths come from a singularity on this planet. And I believe that these myths go back to, well, we can show many of these myths, the Cosmic Egg and the Cosmic Mountain, and the hero's journey. They go back at least 34,000 years. And so everybody didn't come from, Iberian Peninsula in West North Africa 34,000 years ago, but those people had migrated across the Sahara. And they migrated across into Egypt, where they carried on the same myths. And people came through Egypt. It was a transit station like Grand Central in New York. And so why do the Chinese have the fundamentally same Cosmic Egg myth as the people, this Pale Cave, the Egyptians and the Dogon? Is because it had emanated from the same place. And it didn't require ancient aliens to do it. So what the ancient aliens people do is they put out this great archaeological story in anthropology. And I mean, they show great images, and it's absolutely beautiful done. And then without an answer from anybody outside of their circle, except for one mythologist who does some pretty good stuff, they will then jump to the conclusion it must have been aliens.
Exactly. That's one thing I don't like about it, but I do like the show. And we also have to give credit to Eric Von Daniken, who is also
Yeah.
a prominent figure who did push all of that to the forefront. Speaking of
Oh
which,
yeah, he's brilliant. So here's the deal with.
yeah, go ahead.
So the question now becomes, with my work coming out, that there was a singular source of these myths, and many of the myths that the ancient aliens has, the cosmic mountain, the cosmic egg, the man who flies. So in the Paleolithic cave images, we find this man who transforms himself into a bird, an avianoid. And we can see, not only we see him transform into a bird, but we actually see he wears a mask to do it, and we can see like his chin under the mask. So it's a shamanic type of character. Well, and so what they said was, well, that was angels and the Anunnaki and whatever. They're all people that were descended from the gods. But in the Paleolithic myth, what actually happened is people, the spiritual leader adorned the mask, and he spiritually transcended to the great beyond, into the night sky, but he physically didn't go there. And so it's a transcendence, and it's so they kind of have it backwards. And so what will happen when Eric Von Daniken and David Wilcox and this the guy with a Greek name I can't pronounce.
Oh, Giorgio Tsoukalos.
something.
Tsoukalos, right.
Okay. Well, what will happen? Well, they've already seen my stuff. What would their show be like if there's this like valid alternative point of reference that predates anything they have in their show? Because they're saying this all happened, 8 to 12,000 years ago. That's really their story. They're not saying they're ancient aliens 34,000 years ago. They're saying 8 to 12,000 years ago, maybe someone showed up to teach them how to build the pyramids and do some work with the Mayans on the side. But this fundamental story that we have the same myths, and we have human characters involved with these myths without ancient aliens of any type. We don't have grays or anything like in these images, but we have them 34,000 years ago, completely debunks the ancient alien hypothesis. I will never be invited to contact in the desert. And, you probably just gotten disinvited by me being on the show. I'm going to put it out there. You need to know that.
Oh, I've always been persona non grata, so it's okay. I'm used to it. Oh, I have heat with a lot of people out there, Bernie. It's totally fine. You're in good company. I did have dinner with one of the producers of the program, however, about 2 years ago. And I did let him know that I did notice a couple things on their show there that I just found pretty pretentious. I couldn't really support some of the things, which I should have never even opened my mouth during dinner, but what can I say?
Well, they're very smart, and they're in the money business.
Of course.
And I don't believe they believe in 99% of what they say.
Cowboys and UFOs.
Exactly.
Good Lord.
It's brilliantly done, and what's most important, where we started from, is that is the popular media, and is more significant than any work in textbooks.
Yeah, it's outstanding, really, how long that whole series has gone. And to backtrack just really quickly here, you mentioned China earlier. And when you were there, did you visit any of those amazing caves they have out there?
The answer to that is I'm not sure if the caves that you're talking about. I was in China during the Tiananmen time period, and afterwards we were all kicked out. All the Westerners kicked out. And then I came back and I traveled for a few months. I backpacked with an extra pair of underwear. And
Yes.
I'm serious. I stayed in places that were less than $1 a day. Okay? I traveled throughout China, through the far northwest territories, which was where the Uyghur people are, the ones currently in their re-education camps. I traveled into Inner Mongolia and the Harbin, Heilongjiang region, which is on the border of North Korea,
Right.
Jilin province. I traveled down the Sichuan-Bana, which is within the the drug triangle and on the border of Thailand. I traveled into Sichuan, China, and where you have the Sichuan the spicy food. The only place I didn't travel in China when I was there was Tibet because it was closed. But
Tibet.
now you can go.
I was referring to the Longyu Caves.
So so there are caves. I went to caves in Xinjiang.
Okay.
And
those
were caves.
Those are still great.
I don't want to describe them as mummies, but they were the equivalent. They were non-wrapped mummies. But at that time, I wasn't interested in this stuff.
I see.
I was collecting, knives, whatever 24-year-old guy collects on his journey, right?
You're trying to stab someone, Bernie.
Well, actually, I had this great collection of knives, and I put them in my bag, and I was checking onto this Chinese airplane, and the bag was to go under the airplane. And the guy's going, security said, well, we can't let you on with the knives. And I said, well, they're going to be in check bag. I said, well, what if you went down under the airplane, somehow got through the floor, took out the knives, and stabbed the pilots? It was the most absurd thing. What they really want to do is confiscate the knives because, the plane's taken off in an hour, and what can I do with the knives?
That's true.
And so that was their way of.
That's interesting.
It was bogus. It was the stupidest. It was absolutely bogus. They were going in the bag, and I was being separated from the bag at that time, so I had no access to them going forwards. So
good Lord.
Yes. Yes.
On a side note, now there was another name I did want to bring up to you, and that's Michael Tellinger. Have you seen the photograph of the giant footprint?
Well, I've seen actually a few different ones. Give me a location of it.
Let's see.
In China?
No. That's not in China. I believe that was in Africa.
Okay. Yeah, I've seen those. Yeah.
Not impressed.
Okay. So what you're really asking the question, there's two questions you're asking, really, whether people take this. So one is whether giants.
Right.
And two is were there people walking among dinosaurs?
Exactly, because I was going to segue into the Ica stones.
Yeah.
Okay. You know where I'm going.
Okay, so here's my opinion on it. I actually have no opinion on it because I go back 34,000 years.
Okay.
So what they're talking about is way more distant in time. But here's more significant. This is even more significant than, the alleged footprint in the stone. Is we have these Paleolithic images, especially this gallery of discs, and if we go from one end to the other, we'll call it north to south. We have a man, and we'll call it who holds a cosmic egg. We'll call him Hercules, and next to him is an eagle, which is we're going to call a Gaia, and then we have the horse, which is Pegasus. We have a dolphin, which is Pisces. We have next is Cetus. We have a seal, which is Cetus. Constellation Cetus. We go to Orion. Above Orion, we have the Barbary Ape, which is Gemini, and the two eyes are Castor and Pollux. And then we have Mother Bear and two cubs is Ursa Major. Next to that, we have the great Auk, who is Cygnus, and we have Draco. We've actually gone around, and there's many more constellations as the Greeks saw them. We've just gone around the sky as the Greeks knew them. Claudius Ptolemy, so we're talking about 1,800 years ago, wrote the Almagest, and he is considered the source of modern astronomy. Okay, and so two-thirds of the constellations that we know today come from Ptolemy. Well, Ptolemy he was also the head librarian of the Library of Alexandria. He had a source, and I don't believe Ptolemy had actually gone to the caves, but he had a source book. And he borrowed these exact images, put them into the astronomical record that we use today. So there was a fellow named Newton, and he was astronomer and historian at I think it was University of Houston in Texas, and he had passed on a few years back. And he said Ptolemy was a fraud. He said he was a fraud.
Strong words.
Because there were constellations that Ptolemy couldn't see in his time, but he had in the record. And so somehow Ptolemy just made it up. Well, here's a different explanation. That Ptolemy saw the constellations in the record from a different point in a different place.
Well, that would make sense.
It made total sense.
Yeah.
And so what's fascinating about this is the physics And astronomy, the early state that we've had until my work was Ptolemy. It's the foundation of it all. If we send somebody to the moon, or we send a shuttle out to circle Mars or land on Mars, but circle Venus, it's all based on the work of Ptolemy. And Ptolemy's work is based on the work of Paleolithic artists 32,000 years before him.
That's what really baffles me about indigenous cultures. They learn various things, and along the way, they learn things along the way, and they pass it on to others. Well, like in cave paintings, that was a form of communication for a lot of these people. They told these stories that were sort of touching upon the surface very briefly here, but when it comes to advanced astronomical calculations and when to harvest properly, it's insane, really, that they had all this vast knowledge. It really makes you wonder, well, who the hell taught them all this?
Exactly. So, and here's a pretty good example. Native Americans here in the Pacific Northwest, they lived, they migrated in certain movements, and so they weren't like they were sort of semi-nomadic, and they moved to different plant and animal sources throughout the year. Well, if they were too early or too late for the salmon, they missed the food, or the food wasn't there when they arrived.
Yeah.
They had to know when the salmon arrived, or the people starved. And that we today go to Costco, we go to Safeway, some of us go to New Seasons. We have New Seasons Northwest, or Whole Foods, right? And they didn't have that luxury. It was a live or die situation. And so within their calendars, within their culture, within their traditional practices, they had this knowledge, and they told it through stories. And I'll give you an example. When I first started work, when I first figured out how the salmon are timed with the sun and the moon, I went to the tribes and I asked them the question of how do you do it and how do you know it? And everybody told me the same story. And it was a story about the Swallow sisters that came up the river and had to do with the coyote, and it dug the river and following the Swallow sisters. The Swallow sisters did bad things, and as their penance, they always had to fly ahead of the salmon, of the first salmon. What they were saying was, you look for the swallows, and X number of days later, you will start to see the first salmon. That's the story, and that's the timing mechanism. Well, the person who told that story who traditionally told the story was a fellow named Chief Tommy Thompson, one of the last great chiefs. And he died in the 1940s. And Tommy Thompson brought all the tribes in from the Columbia River Basin to Celilo Falls, where you see in the old pictures of the salmon jumping up and the people sort of catch them with the nets.
Oh, yes.
But that was at Celilo Falls. Well, Tommy Thompson brought them all in. And what he did was he set the first day you started to fish for salmon, and when you would stop in the lower part of the river, so that salmon could go up river to the other tribes, and so they would be at peace. And how Tommy Thompson did it was, and it's written, his work is chronicled, is he would get up before the sun, and he would look at the stars. And through the stars themselves would speak to him. They were telling him about time and space. And then as the sun rose, he had a pole, and there was a bird that he had carved at the top, and it's still there in front of the Celilo village, facing east. And he would look at the shadow from the pole, which would again tell him time of year. And in Tommy Thompson's version of his religion and history and biology, he said that the great Almighty was speaking to him. And there's a truth in that. And there's a truth in that resonates among hunter-gatherers and ancient peoples around the world, that whoever you call that the sun, you can call the sun Ra. You can call this group a constellation Orion. They were all speaking to these people through the language of astronomy.
Yeah, which is crazy.
So it's actually fascinating.
It is, yes.
And how I learned about Tommy Thompson was I gave a presentation to the Umatilla tribe, which is about, probably a 4 hours drive out of Portland. And I gave it to the tribal council. So this is all, let's call it the great leaders in that tribe, fairly large confederation. And I started talking about the biological timing and the sun and the moon and so forth. And they went silent. They start whispering to each other. And they said, Tommy Thompson, Tommy Thompson. I hadn't heard that name before. And one person said, why didn't he tell us? And afterwards, somebody came up to me and I asked them, who was Tommy Thompson? And they said, well, they explained who he was and what his role was. And the answer was that he did tell them. He explained it through their religion. But when his religion died with the flooding of the Columbia River, because they actually flooded that part of Slidell Falls where he was and where his lodge was. They actually moved, the lodge is now, or the longhouse is now up on the cliffs. The pole is there with the bird on top, but there's a cliff in front of it, so the religion doesn't work because they can't see east. They can't have that shadow. So we flooded the Columbia Basin, that part of it, we lost the falls. We moved the church, the longhouse, and they lost the religion. But that religion, they still carry on through the myth that everybody told me the same story about the Swallow Sisters and the coyote and the coyote trickster, and how one knows when the salmon will come upriver. It's all there. We just have to listen. And we have to believe that the myths there's truth in the myth.
That's a good point. Truth in the myth. A very good point. And of course, do you have anything in the works, by the way, before I even forget? You're not currently writing anything, are you?
I'm not currently writing. In fact, I probably won't write another book.
Really?
Because I finished my journey. And at the end of the journey was to come back and tell my story.
You finished your hero's journey.
I finished my hero's journey. And I'm now sharing the story and sharing what I've learned. So I don't believe I'll write another book. And this was also the book of, I don't want to say it was the book of all books. It was the book of all books that I could write, because any other book I would write would be fundamentally rewriting the same book. So I could, hypothetically write a book about Stonehenge, but I'd be writing this, transferring the same story to Stonehenge. And I believe that the message now is not best for me, is not best told through writing more books, but it's out there doing podcasts and presentations and meeting with the people in the universities and collaborating with them. I see the next direction for me to go is the next step would be a documentary. So if anybody out there has a connection with somebody that wants to do a documentary on mythology, on Joseph Campbell and Carl Jung, the hero's journey, Paleolithic cave art, archaeoastronomy, and these fascinating subjects, find me on my webpage and, connect with me. But this is a highly visual subject, and I've made a bunch of videos, and any one of those videos become a Netflix type of program.
I was going to say, that would be good to see you on Netflix with some sort of documentary. And going back to the ancient aliens theory, this is something I completely forgot to mention. Well, there is a cave in the Utah area. I think it's called the Sago Canyon.
Okay, I'm gonna look it up. Remember how you spell Sago?
Sego.
Okay.
I think that's
Sago Canyon. Okay, yeah. So okay.
Oh, you spelled that right. That
was pretty quick. That was easy to find.
Okay, so yeah, this canyon area in Utah.
Yeah.
It dates back to 5,000 years BC. I'm just throwing out a number. I think that's true.
I can't validate that dating, but so the question is, are they aliens?
Well, yes, they depict these unusual looking characteristics that don't seem to belong to any modern man, and some say they depict alien-like beings with these overly exaggerated eye shapes and large heads. Basically what we would describe as a tall gray.
Yeah. So I'm going to answer your question through a question. I'm going to prime it with an example.
Sure.
Okay. So in this Paleolithic cave image in the Gallery of Dis, we have a man who overlaps with the dolphin. And he overlaps in such a way that he becomes a merman. Okay. The man also overlaps with the horse, that it becomes a centaur. And the horse overlaps with the eagle, such as it becomes a winged horse, Pegasus. Okay. So we have centaur, we have Pegasus, we have the winged horse, and we have a merman. They're all depicted in the cave art. Does that mean that those beings existed?
No.
Okay.
It doesn't mean that. It doesn't necessarily mean that. We through anthropomorphism, we see these things. What the mind wants to see.
Now, the ancient Greeks were at the height of science for their time. They spoke about centaurs as if they were walking down their own streets. Okay.
That they did. Yes.
And that Pegasus flew Bellerophon, I believe it was at Mount Olympus, and they believed they had seen the same type of images that we're looking at today, and they walked away that they're therianthropes, the mix between man and human.
Correct.
And we still carry that same psychology within us. As Batman takes on the spirit of the bat, and Spider-Man the spider, and so man projects his psyche into the cosmos. We not only did we see Pegasus as a winged horse, but we projected into the night sky as a constellation.
Yes.
And among Sagittarius, we actually with the man who becomes a centaur, we projected Orion to the night sky, and the merman is actually Aquarius, constellation Aquarius. And so, if we can take an image from the cave walls and then project into the night sky as a constellation, that modern astronomy uses to figure out to get from point A to point B, 3 stars to the right, how far down the totem pole of imagination are these so-called alien petroglyphs at Sago Canyon?
Yeah. I hear you on that one. I'm with you on that one, yes. No doubt. No doubt. And yes, you're right about these archetypes. And for the most part, these are extremely accurate, and we see them play out right before our eyes.
Correct.
Right on that television screen of ours. We see plenty.
Oh, absolutely.
we see plenty examples of that in our current president.
Yes.
He is the authoritarian archetype.
He's the Mad King.
He's
the bully.
Mm-hmm.
But here's something about it. Subject number 1. And during the debate with Hillary Clinton, he was asked, "What can you say nice about each other?" And she said that he's a good family man. Okay, that's really important. So, and he actually, what came out with some of the interviews and the testimonies was he never thought he was going to be president, but he actually worried about being president because then his family would become exposed. And so, while he is the bully to half the country, he's the hero to the other.
Yes, his base, his core group, he's
the hero.
That hero.
He's the mafia Don. He's Don. He's Don Trump, and of course Don Corleone. It's all about the family. It resonates, and so you can be the hero, and you can be the hero and the monster at the same time. Look, it goes back to the animals. So here's a pretty good example: is that lions in Africa. There's the mature male lion has a pride of females and juveniles that he's sired. Well, if another lion comes in and challenges him and wins, that lion will then kill off the young. So by killing off the young, they are no longer there's no more weaning from the females, and they become sexually receptive again. And so he then becomes. That new lion then becomes the king of the jungle, the king of the savannah. And then he becomes the hero. He becomes Don Corleone. He becomes Don Trump. But to get to that point, he had to have killed off his rivals. So so Don Trump he is carrying out a basic instinct that comes from animal beings. And will we ever change? The answer is I don't believe so. I believe in thousands of years, our great descendants will be having the same conversation, that we have these archetypal characters that are within us that we can't escape from. The scenes will change. Maybe we'll be in space. The costumes will change. Maybe we'll have spacesuits on. But the fundamental stories will remain the same.
They'll live on.
And we can say that because the same stories that we have on the big screen today go back to 34,000 years ago. The hero on his journey, the hero that's assisted by spiritual helpers, this hero that finds himself at the climax moment of the journey and finds that secret strong enough to let society free, and then returns back home, there and back again, to tell the story.
Yes, and Joseph Campbell wrote a book called The Hero with a Thousand Faces, in which showed how the same gods appear, like you said, in different guises throughout history, and For some people, political figures are the deity, are the modern day gods for some of these
Yeah.
individuals. Lots of them, politics has become the new religion for some individuals out there. The way they embrace certain individuals and how these individuals are hoisted up to this platform that's holier than thou, and they
Yeah.
could do no wrong. And you see this, and it's insane behavior to actually witness this yourself. But it's been quite fascinating and entertaining, Bernie, I must say.
Absolutely, the new demigods. And
Right.
to put it out to your audience, I'm not a Donald Trump fan. Okay,
That's okay.
just the opposite. But as a concept, we can't escape from these archetypal
We
characters. There
can't.
will always be bullies, and there will always be the bullied. There will always be the teacher and the apprentice, and there will always be the trickster who tests us. And this Paleolithic cave image was made by the trickster, who tests the apprentice. Can you see beyond the red disc? Can you see the elephant in the room? Can you see the forest through the trees? And can you get past that brainstem dominated psychology of, the red discs? And, you hypothetically be walking to a bar and you see this absolutely gorgeous woman with a red dress and red lipstick and you're drawn to her. But is that truly the person that she is? And the answer should be, it's a yes or no answer.
Sorry about that. I heard another strange voice coming through here.
Okay, that's right. Well, the answer should be no. Okay, the answer
Right.
should be no.
Sorry about that. Yes.
Okay,
Again,
that's right.
yeah.
It should be no. And so we have to get we individually have to get past our own issues, and these issues that have been going on for tens of thousands of years. And before my work, when we looked at the Don Trump of the world, it was Gilgamesh. The Epic of Gilgamesh, which dates about 4,500 years ago,
The Great
and
Flood
was
story. Yeah.
was dug up in the sands of, I believe, Iraq. And Gilgamesh takes this hero's journey story, and he is a horrible person. He's, he if there was Me Too, it would have been plastered across you know, every rock in Iraq. He was the worst of the worst. And he takes this journey. He learns about himself, and when he returns from the journey, he climbs the same steps of a rook that we start the story, but he sees it in a whole new light, and he's a completely different person. And
It's a great read for those who have not read the Epic of
Gilgamesh, yeah.
Gilgamesh.
And so Gilgamesh was significant because in modern psychology, they look back 4,500 years ago and say, people had the same issues that we have today.
Hasn't gone away. That's true.
It hadn't gone away. And so they'll often, psychologists will also quote, actually not quote, but, point the finger at Gilgamesh. And so what I'm saying is that it's more than 4,500 years ago. It's at least 34,000 years ago. And people don't etch this astronomical tradition. The person who comes up with the idea of the astronomy and the person who comes up with the idea of the myth doesn't just put it on the walls of a cave. It's told around the campfires for tens, if not hundreds of thousands of years before that. And so these issues that we have, this hero that takes it on his journey and he learns about himself and all his frailties and the frailties of mankind. This is a myth. These are archetypes that are fundamentally within us and go back, I would say, I'm going to say hundreds of thousands of years. We haven't changed. And therefore, if we haven't changed in 34,000 years and possibly hundreds of thousands of years, we're not likely to change in the next few years either.
By the way, do you think the Earth is much older than we know it to be?
So I'm not a physicist, okay?
Understood. Yes.
And the date of the Earth, every textbook puts it back a few 100 million years, right? Okay.
It seems to, yeah.
So that's a physics question, and I'm 34,000 solid that I'm completely convinced about, and I'm feeling pretty good about 300,000.
No problem.
But that's beyond mine. But this is actually interesting. What we can learn from this Paleolithic cave art, in addition to the frailties of humanity, is that they're telling us the story of the cosmic egg, and they have all these constellations that overlap each other. Well, we can actually now go back into our we use our astronomical software to see if our software is correct. And so how the astronomical software works is it's based on mathematical models. And so if we want to put a man or a woman in a distant star someday, we have to know the math. Otherwise, we're gonna send the ship to the wrong star. And right now, it's based on the mathematical formulas. We can now go back 34,000 years ago to see what has actually we can massage astronomical math based on the Paleolithic cave image.
And
So it's by having this teacher's edition book, we can
yes,
actually see we can see look at the tests we're giving today to see in fact if we have the right answers.
absolutely. And moving along slowly here because we're almost out of time. Many great cultures out there seem to really focus on their dreams. They interpreted those dreams in various ways. And do you personally feel that to be something that's beneficial in all of our lives to break down these dreams that we occasionally have, sometimes reoccurring dreams?
Absolutely, yes, yeah, absolutely. Here's so we did the an answer a question with a question. Here's an interesting one. There's a mountain in Morocco. It's called Jebel Tobakal, and Jebel Tobakal is Mount Atlas. It's the story of the from the ancient. It's the place of the ancient Greeks where Perseus climbed with the head of Medusa and turned the Atlas into stone to become the face of the mountain.
Love that
It's the mountain
story.
that Hercules climbed on one of his labors to retrieve the golden apples. Okay,
Yes.
um, and the people Herodotus said that the people of Mount Atlas, he called them Atlantes. Okay, I'm going to tell you, and he predates Plato. He said that they were a place where the people never ate a living thing, therefore they were vegetarians, and it was a place that people never dreamed.
That's creepy.
Isn't so? Why would so? Here's a question:
Amazing.
if the love of your life is in the bed next to you in the bed, would you dream about another person?
I probably would.
Okay.
That's a joke.
Okay. If you were at the cosmic mountain,
Yes.
hypothetically, at the cosmic mountain, would you be dreaming about another cosmic mountain?
Probably not.
Okay. So what I think Herodotus was saying through the lore of those people is that this was a place of origin.
Right.
And this place of origin, Jebel Tobakal, is within a few days' walk from Jebel Erhud, the place we have the earliest remains of Homo sapiens from 300,000 years ago.
Yeah, that's pretty
Interesting, isn't it?
very yeah, very
It's the
intense.
original place. It is the place that the heroes climb, that cosmic mountain. It is the place that this hero in this Paleolithic cave travels to in Western North Africa.
Amazing stuff. And going back to dreams really quickly here, do you dream in black and white or in color, Bernie?
I can't say that I dream in color, but I do remember a lot of my dreams. And I tell you a dream
Okay.
I had during the writing of this book.
Sure.
And there was it was early in the morning, and my dog, which had been deceased for 2 years or so, he came to my bed, and he's with his wet nose. He's a Vizsla and wet nose, and he's nuzzling on my face, and he's trying to wake me up, and he wakes me up, and he starts whimpering. He wants to go out, so he takes me to the door, actually the door of the bedroom, which went out into the porch, and it was a glass door, and on the other side of the glass door, I saw a cheetah, and so I go to open the door, and the dog disappears and the cheetah disappears. Okay. The next night, my dog didn't go out. The next morning, the same dream. So I go to the door and the cheetah's there, but my dog left. This time that I open the door, I see him run away. And so what I believe a few messages in that dream. One was I needed to let go of my dog.
Yeah.
Because when our dogs die, we weep and we cry, and we're so emotionally attached to them because they've been our friends for my dog was 16 years.
That was
It's
a
like
symbolic dream.
it was a symbolic dream
Word
to let go of my dog
to let
and
go.
what had been from that past. So then the cheetah, why is the cheetah there? Well, very interesting is that recently before that, George and I, we had identified a cheetah and her kittens in this Paleolithic cave image. And the cheetah was one of the animals in the image that at that point we weren't thinking Africa. And we were thinking maybe the cheetah somewhere in Eurasia or something. And it was, but that's what struck me as I've got to be looking at Africa through that cheetah. It came to me a dream. So in that dream, it was to work out my problems of the day. And also those are my personal conscious that they've been haunting me for 2 years or so. And so through our dreams, we learn about ourselves if we allow ourselves to, and we can find solutions to the problems of our lives.
By the way, you almost said it lasted 200, 300.
Yes, yes, exactly. It's 2 years. It was 2 years.
Well, you know,
Roughly.
it's funny you say that because some dreams that I've had almost seem like they lasted for that long in a
So
weird sense.
the question, here's really the question of, I would say that
Hmm.
while that individual dream was of my dog and the cheetah, but I believe that we carry dreams for hundreds of thousands of years. So this dream, the
Yes,
cosmic mountain,
I think you're
you
right
know,
about that.
all around the world, people have this cosmic mountain. If they don't have a mountain, so it's for the Hindi people, it's Meru. For the Greeks, the Olympians held on Mount Olympus. I live in Oregon, and it's Mount Shasta to the south, or up here is their sacred mountain. To the Tibetans, it's Mount Everest, and the Japanese, it's Fuji. There's cosmic mountains all over China. They each have other different types of holy mountain names for every freaking one of them. And when we don't have mountains, like the Giza, the flatland of Egypt, we built pyramids, and the Mayans built these pyramidal shapes as well in these flat lands. So why do we do this? Well, it's not just to climb that cosmic mountain, the transcendent beyond, but we carry these images in our dreams. They're symbols, and that's what Jung said. Swiss psychologist Jung said.
Yes.
The cosmic mountain is an archetypal memory, and he found that the two most common non-organic characters in dreams were the body of water and a mountain. If you walk into any middle school, actually elementary school, where they're painting their first landscapes, you're going to find 2/3 of that class has a mountain in the background, and they have some body of water in the foreground.
You actually creeped me out because I remember being in third or fourth grade where a lot of paintings had mountains and water in them.
Exactly.
Pretty
Remember
weird.
Close Encounters? He goes to all the characters, Richard Dreyfuss and others. They're drawn to the cosmic mountain where the aliens will come.
Oh, yes.
And what's real now, this is, and of course, it's Devil's Tower, which was called a bear lodge by the Lakota Sioux. But this is what's really creepy. Okay, this is like the most amazing thing, is that the Lakota Sioux traveled around that region, the Black Hills, and they traveled around. This actually spiritual group traveled around the spring, and each monument was associated with a different constellation. And the last monument that they went to was Bear Lodge, so-called Devil's Tower, and it's where they met the constellation Gemini, which kind of looks like Devil's Tower, right? It's that cylindrical shape. And at that place, they had their Sundance ceremony. And the Sundance ceremony is where the hero transcends. It's the same story. And they carry, so the same story, Steven Spielberg pulled this story came out of one of the writers of his collective unconscious. I don't believe Spielberg knew that was the same story. That where they were meeting the aliens was where the Lakota Sioux was transcending to the great beyond through the constellations. And so is that creepy?
It is.
Sort of. But I believe we carry these symbols, these archetypal memories in our collective unconscious that we can't escape from. In the same way we can't escape from Don Corleone and Don Trump, or the lion who was both the hero and the bully, and the teacher and the apprentice, the mother and the child, and the trickster. We have all of these archetypal characters within us, and they manifest through our dreams. They speak to us through our dreams, and we retell them through stories, whether they're the big screen or we retell the stories of the ancient Greeks, we can understand those stories because they tell us about ourselves. And they're about ourselves and stories that we keep repeating one day to the next.
It's really fascinating stuff. Carl Jung, way ahead of his time. Very, very brilliant man. Yes, very brilliant. And of course, going back in time quickly here before we wrap it up, I did want to ask you about Neanderthals, rather.
Yes.
I did want to ask you about their breeding with, I guess you could say, modern man. What exactly happened to them?
Okay, so Neanderthals died off in the DNA record about 40,000 years ago. Neanderthals were in Eurasia, whereas we don't have DNA evidence that Neanderthals were in Africa. We have DNA evidence. Let's say the area around Israel we have is kind of the cross between Homo sapiens and Neanderthal. And so, what happened to Neanderthals? And I wrote about it in my book. I wrote a chapter about it, and this is what I believe happened. Okay, I believe when we came out of Africa, we had a better toolkit, and one of the components in our toolkit were dogs. In these Paleolithic cave images, we have dogs that we could recognize today. So we have the Aswan Slohi from Western North Africa. We have the Canary Persarios, the canary dog from now in the Canary Islands. We have the Spitz dog. And when you have a dog with you, you can hunt better. You can protect yourself better. And when you kill, I used to be a big game hunter, and it's a bear. It's tough finding the animals, even if you have a good shot. And so if you have a dog, which is illegal in Oregon to use, you can find that game. You can send out a dog to pin down a bison and then go hunt, then go take the bison with your spears. And so what we did, one of the things that we did was that we at least 34,000 years ago, and in the DNA record of dogs, we can go back possibly 100,000 years ago of domestication. When we came out of Africa, we were the predator. We were the invasive species, and we had the dog in our toolkit that made us, we were the Terminator.
Yeah, we're the alphas, correct.
And so that's what I believe. I believe that the major factor was the dogs, which didn't exist in Europe. Domesticated dogs didn't exist before we arrived in the record. And the dogs we have like the canary dog. Canary dog is like a 70, 80 pound animal. I mean, we see this image of that dog in the record. The Aswan Slohi can run down deer and gazelle. They actually run them down. They bump them over. And so you don't have to throw a spear to take down a gazelle with an Aswan Slohi. And we also had we had trained eagles. So we had falconry, which could take down other birds.
The thought of humans interbreeding with Neanderthals is just so strange because it is in our DNA.
Yes.
A very small percentage is
4 or 5% people in
all of our
Eurasia.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's so weird, though. Can you imagine just a Cro-Magnon man just walking around and he sees a Neanderthal and he just mates with it? I'm sure it didn't go just like that, but well, maybe it did. I'm not quite sure. We weren't there, so how do we know these things were even seduced into this sort of thing? But just the whole thought is humorous and very baffling.
So there's an image that I have. People can find on my webpage, beforeorion.com, and it's a Janus type of figure, two heads in different directions. One of them is Homo sapiens. I call him the Nordic man. The other one I call Man X. Man X looks Neanderthal in every possible way, and their heads are joined back to back. And I believe that this is in the so-called Gorham etching, and I believe the Paleolithic artist in that cave was telling us about the past and the future in the same way of Janus. And so not only do we did mate with them, but we recognize that we have Neanderthal in us, but that was something that was disappearing because we were overpowering them in a population. But it is the most fascinating image to have this back to head, this joined head Homo sapien, what I believe to be is Neanderthal. And the man with the Homo sapien has a bit full beard and he's bald on top. And I remember the first time George Schauer looked at it, he asked me the question. He says, did they shave? And well, that was the oldest image we had of Homo sapiens by about 15,000 years. And I thought it was funny. George didn't know
That's
that.
wild. Yeah.
And so it was like validation that I was onto something, and that someone independently had actually seen this working through the images. And we never he couldn't tell me that. We definitively can't say what this man X is, but he has all the features of the Neanderthal. And so the Paleolithic people had encountered Neanderthals, and they knew what they looked like. And we have this image that is about the size, a little bit bigger than the size of your thumbnail, of the two back to back. So it's tiny, but it has all the features of both. And the Homo sapien man has this big beard and this kind of little pug nose. But it's on my webpage, fororion.com. It's fascinating images that were before my work came out. This was impossible. This just couldn't happen.
All of this is just completely fascinating. I feel like I could even talk to you for another hour here, but again,
we'll do another show.
We have
another
to.
Time.
Yeah, I mean, I'm completely baffled and fascinated by all of this. I'm just listening to you and just thinking about so many different things to get into here with you. And one of the things that just popped into my mind just right now is: have you ever heard of the story of Zana? I'm not quite sure if you have. It's a story of a ape woman of the Caucasus Mountains, and apparently this I guess you could say woman that many people online this story's been going on forever, but they believe that Zana was basically some sort of a Neanderthal, turns out, and they thought it was a Bigfoot.
That's actually, this is interesting, because that's actually the man beast is an archetypal character. Okay.
Oh yes.
And we find the man beast in Gilgamesh. People don't want to talk about it, but really, I believe the character's name is Enkidu.
Enkidu,
and
yes.
It's his alter ego, and he battles with it.
And he kills it.
It's an ape-like man of the forest. And so I believe that just as Spider-Man is the spider and Batman bat and so on, I believe that we project this animal being from us. And so when we're walking through the woods and we hear the crunching off in the distance, and we hear breaking over the branches, some people think it's a bear, but we really projected off as some sort of a Bigfoot. And so we have it in the record going back 34,000 years. So the answer, I'm sorry, we have the Gilgamesh. The answer is, do we have any Bigfoot-like characters in this Paleolithic cave images? The answer is no. But what we do have, we have other therianthropes. We have the merman, we have the avianoid man, we have the centaur. So we have this, but we have this, the animal is still in us.
Very primitive, yes.
Batman puts the mask on to become the bat. In these images, the man puts on the bird's mask to become the avianoid. But these archetypal characters, the therianthrope, our need to gain strength or find fear with these man-beast animals will always be with us. And so I believe it's part of our psychology. I believe there will always be Bigfoots. But the Bigfoots will always be in our minds. And that's not that just, people despair and they go looking for Bigfoots and going through it's yes. It's healthier to go hiking through the woods looking for Bigfoot than gambling in Vegas.
Very yes. I would have to.
So, have fun in the woods and just go for it. But I believe that it's part of our psychology to project these man-beast type of animals, as we're finding in the Paleolithic cave images. And today, no one really says they found a mermaid, right?
Right.
But we project other characters: Bigfoot, Batman, Spider-Man. The latest is, of course, Ant-Man, and Aquaman, which is the merman.
Yeah, Aquaman, which is a film I still haven't seen.
Good movie, Merman.
I have to watch it sometime. But Bernie, I do want to thank you tremendously for being a part of the program. I really did enjoy our chat, and of course, your book, Before Orion, Finding the Face of the Hero. And I thought it was quite interesting, right in the prologue of that, you mentioned Bobby Fischer, a
Yeah.
name that I didn't even think I would ever read again. And it shot me back through time and going back to chess, playing the game of chess when I was very young, back when I was somewhat decent, but of course not to the level of a Bobby Fischer. I mean, come on now.
It's about genius, and Bobby Fischer takes his own personal hero's journey. But if there, Bobby was a genius among master chess players, and if there were geniuses as Bobby Fischer 20 years ago, who basically learned 40 years ago, learned it in his Brooklyn apartment, there could have been geniuses 34,000 years, and it goes hundreds of thousands of years ago. We have better toys now, but that psychology, that ability that Fischer had to play games in his head.
And learning, yeah, learning your opponent's move and all of that. It also reminded me of the book The Art of War.
Exactly. Oh yeah,
Love it.
yes.
I'm telling you, I could talk to you for another hour here, but of course,
Another show.
another show. We'll do it again, Bernie. Of course, the book is Before Orion, Finding the Face of the Hero. His website is beforeorion.com. And amazing, Bernie. I'm so glad you were here and spent some time with us. I definitely want to give you the final word, any words of encouragement throughout uh, our individual journey and your journey, or anything you want to get off your chest. Now is the time, Bernie. The stage is yours.
We all have to answer the call, and I answered the call when I looked at these images, and I was work, basically a biology background, statistics, and I went past the red discs, and I saw these spiritual characters, and I first said to myself, am I ready to accept this? Am I ready to write about this? Am I ready to write about a merman and a centaur? And is this real? Is this real? And the answer is that they're real in our minds and they're real in our psychology. And that if you answer the call, you will go to places that were unimaginable before that time. And so step out of your comfort zone, put behind put the ego on the shelf. Forget about the religions that people have been indoctrinating you, and close the textbook, and go to places on your own to experience for yourself.
Great final words, Bernie. I do appreciate that. And thank you so much again for being here. And we'll touch base in the near future, my friend.
Thank you, Michael.
All right. Take care, Bernie. And there he goes, ladies and gentlemen. That was Bernie Taylor. Great, great guest. And when I return, Michael, the sedated man, makes his arrival on the program. Don't go anywhere. Stay tuned. And welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Here we are again for round two. And I am joined by another soul, Michael Baker. Let's bring him in. Michael, are you there?
I am.
Perfect. I'm glad you're alive.
Thank you.
Yeah,
I'm glad I'm
welcome.
alive as well.
Yes. And welcome to the program. And this is the second half. And I'm so glad you have stayed up to be on the program here. Really appreciate that.
Well, I'm thankful you had me on very, very much. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. And of course, you are the host of your own show called The Sedated Man.
Correct.
Yeah, tell us a little bit about that before we jump into all sorts of things here.
Well, the sedated man is basically for Christian men, and the whole idea behind it is the way society's gotten to be is there's like this rain down upon men that they're too masculine and they're just too this and they're too that, and a lot of men within their churches and their families and their communities, for that matter, are really stepping back and stepping down and and are afraid to show them their true selves, I guess you could say. And my whole mission really is to help them to find that, at least within the pages of Scripture, there's no such thing as a mediocre Christian, and that they need to step back up and they need to step out. And if they want to see change, it's got to start within their houses themselves. And that's the only time their congregations and their communities can begin to really feel the change that they need.
Yes, and of course, you yourself are a veteran, correct?
I am. Yeah, I did 2 tours in Iraq, and I was 24 years in the National Guard in my state, Montana, and I retired in August.
Oh, wow. What were those 2 tours like, by the way, and when were they exactly?
Well, the first tour was let's see, it was 0405, and the second tour was 10 and 11. I wasn't a door kicker; I was support. So, I mean, my jobs were different. The first time I handled detainees and I handled information, really. And the second tour, I was a supply sergeant and I dealt with the equipment and I dealt with quite a few other things outside of that. But they, like any soldier, it was stressful, and I mean, it's a 24/7 stress. I mean, especially for the door kickers. I had a tremendous amount of respect for the door kickers. And for those who don't know what a door kicker is,
Yeah, I was
they're
going
the
to
guys
say,
who have to,
yeah, I was going
yeah,
to say,
those are,
explain.
yeah, no, those are the guys who have to go out on patrols. They're the guys who have to apprehend. They're the guys who are constantly out, with their weapons poised and ready to fight at any point. The support guys are the guys in the back that make those missions possible, so to speak.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Very, very powerful stuff you do.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's a lot of guys trying to do it, and I applaud each and every one of them.
Yeah.
But I don't think the space is saturated by any stretch. So,
Yeah, and interesting enough, I have a lot of listeners who are in the military, and I
yep.
think it's probably because for a long time on YouTube I would just put EOD. Well, I still do, but I would put EOD on the end of my shows for end of days.
Right.
And of course, that's also for the explosive ordnance disposal.
Yep. I knew a lot of those guys.
And again, those guys are pretty alpha.
Yeah, they're crazy. That's what you mean.
Exactly.
I would often joke with those guys, that you guys are crazy.
So, I mean, a few of them have contacted me, and they definitely have told me they listen while they're out there, and I'm just, it just trips me out, and I kid around and I say, if you're listening to me, you'll never lose in battle.
There you go.
Pretty good words of encouragement, I'd say.
Absolutely.
So I get them fired up sometimes.
Yeah.
Some of the younger guys I've talked to out there, and I'm just baffled when I see different places like Afghanistan and Pakistan that they're listening in, and I already know who they are actually.
Yeah. Well, those guys, they need they need something that reminds them of home, something they can
Right.
do, something that takes them away from what they're doing and where they're at.
I didn't understand that, Michael, at all. I
Yeah.
mean, excuse me, I have to clear my throat a little bit here.
No, that's fine.
Yeah, excuse me there. Um, I didn't know I played any sort of significant role to anyone, to be honest with you. I, and of course, these individuals out there, I didn't even know. And I would say, I would give them a shout out. I didn't even know it was them. I would just give the country a shout out. But
Right.
later on, I got an email from those places telling me that that's where they're located and they're listening and they love the show. Blah blah blah. It really puts things into proper perspective for me. In other words,
Well, a lot of people don't realize that fellow soldiers, we refer to each other as Joes. So when Joes are stuck in places they don't want to be,
yeah,
and the only thing they want to do is be home with their wives and their kids or their moms and their dads. Depending on the age and how many deployments they've had. Little things like radio shows that most people wouldn't think about are tremendous encouragements because that's home. For me, I would go outside and I would look at the Big Dipper because to me it was consoling that I could also see the Big Dipper from my front porch.
oh yes, that could definitely
So
remind you of
yeah.
something familiar, something that you're comfortable with. So
Oh yeah.
totally
So
get
it
that.
doesn't surprise me at all that your show was that way, or that your show inspires those guys and helps keep them grounded.
I really do appreciate that. Again, never really considered that, and it blows me away all the time. I get all sorts of emails, and lots of times I don't even know how to respond to them.
Yeah. Well, your show holds interest, Michael. So don't be surprised.
I don't like to be pretentious. That's the whole problem. I don't like to put myself over, but it's
Yeah.
just again, I don't perceive myself that way, but others, we don't know exactly how we come across to anyone really, nor the role we play in their lives.
Exactly. You're exactly correct.
Yeah, so it just trips me out. And one of the last things I heard on one of your episodes, you discussed the VA. And again, it got me into thinking about all the veterans I've talked to, the ones that listen and the ones I know in person, and the ones
Yeah.
that I know who are gone.
Yeah.
And of course, I'm referring to an article about the suicide rate for the younger veterans that increased by more than 10%, if I recall.
Well, veterans, as a general rule, are twice as likely to commit suicide as their civilian counterparts.
Ooh.
Yeah. See, people, if you want to delve into this a little bit, that's
Sure.
great. Because, this actually has a lot, as a vet, there's a lot of Christian veterans that I knew while I was in and that I still know and that I guess you could say mentored or coached or was just there to listen to. But, people don't really, in fact, I think it was 2 podcasts ago, I did 5 things you need to know about veterans, but vets really just want to be like everybody around them, and everybody wants to praise them and we appreciate that. But the things that are going on inside of us, nobody can really understand because they haven't endured, whatever it is each of us has gone through. And so they just wonder, well, why can't they just get over that? Or why don't they just go to the doctor? Or why don't they just, because that's an easy
Yes.
answer for the civilian. So what happens is because they want to be like everybody else, at the same time, they don't feel like everybody else.
Mm.
And so they begin to separate themselves because then they feel like they can't be like everybody else. And so, families, of course, get concerned. Guys begin to get violent. And it just escalates from there. And as far, I don't know if you remember or not, I'm not a fan of the VA.
Yeah, correct. I was, yes, I was just going to ask you, since your experience with the VA, and are you yourself having any sort of difficulty adjusting, Michael, when you did return?
Well, when I came back the first time, I was told that I had PTSD, but so I didn't have a great childhood. And what I was told was that I had PTSD since I was a kid, and that my first tour to Iraq seriously inflamed it. And And I'm not a fan, as many vets, I'm not a fan of doctors. I'm not a fan of meds.
I hear you.
And I'm not a fan of shrinks. I mean, because all they want to do is they want you to talk everything out. And for a lot of vets, that just doesn't work. And so I told him, I said, no, I'll take care of it myself.
Yeah,
And
Michael, that you're right about that. Uh, Talking to people about their issues definitely does work to a certain degree, but
Mhm.
it doesn't exactly fix everything.
yeah,
That's one thing a lot of the general public doesn't even seem to have a grasp on or an understanding of. And I had this discussion with one of the professors back when I was taking Psychology 101.
Mhm.
I brought up veterans and sort of some of these issues. And I said, even if they have a psychologist or a shrink or whatever, uh, these issues will still be problematic in their lives because
absolutely.
anything could, well, not anything, but certain things can trigger back those memories that we do suppress.
Mhm.
And we got into this really interesting discussion, and they sort of agreed with me, but then they didn't. I don't know if it's because I was a student and they were, you know what I mean?
I do know.
But
what
I
you
was
mean.
just saying, you just can't fix everyone.
No.
Doesn't work that way.
Well, and not everybody needs the same fix,
Exactly.
but they want to shove them all in this therapy box. And quite honestly, if vets aren't talking to their best friends about these things, they don't want to talk to. Here's a prime example. All right, and this does get me fired up a little bit. Here's a prime example. They sent me to a shrink when I first got back. I had to go to 3 sessions with a shrink to be evaluated. Okay, so they sent me to this is my air quotes, Christian shrink.
Ah,
Okay,
yes.
so I went. I had to. I was obligated to under orders, and so as many vets are, by the way. But I went, and about at the beginning of the 3rd interview, the guy looks at me and he says, Mike, I'm really just waiting for you to open up here. You're not really opening up. And I said, dude, I don't know you. I don't know anything about you. Why on earth would I come home and tell a complete stranger all of my history and all of my concerns? And I said, I don't know you. I'm not just going to tell you those things. And he thought that was a problem. But to the normal person, I mean, to your friends, you'll tell certain friends certain things. You're not going to tell other friends other things because you just don't know them.
Exactly.
Or
Yeah.
acquaintances. Yeah, exactly. And therapy is just not designed that way.
Yeah. There's things you say and things you don't.
Yeah,
It's just,
exactly.
that's the way it goes. And
Exactly.
I've always been under that mindset as well.
Yeah. I mean, the VA is now starting to look into different types of therapy. I know EMDR is starting to get big, and EMDR is one that I've been looking into, and I wish I could remember exactly what it stands for. It's eye movement. Oh God, I can't remember the other 2 letters.
It's
But
okay.
the whole idea is that when they have you recollect certain things, and they do these motions with their hands, and it has something to do with the eye movements that you're having at the time, and they can somewhat untrigger your body from the memory that you're repeating. Don't quote me on that exactly, but it's been super, super effective with a lot of vets.
Understood. And since Trump took control, he did vow to make improvements with the VA. Have you yourself personally seen any of these significant changes, Michael?
Well, a lot of people don't understand that the VA is this huge machine.
It's a huge yes.
Yeah, and it's seriously broken. All right. And so I have no doubt, and I know the Trump questions are coming. I listen quite often. So
Of course.
yeah, of course. So Trump can make changes, or he can order changes, but I mean, there are so many levels that those changes have to go through that, the odds of seeing them within a year are unlikely before you really start to see a flow.
Right. Yes.
However, I have heard I had to reinsert myself into the VA system since I retired, and it's somewhat of a slow process. But I've heard from a few vets that, or not from the vets, but from a few of my close friends who actually work in the VA, that it has become a lot smoother process, and that things aren't nearly as clogged up going down the line as they were. So in that respect, I've heard that, but I have not yet experienced that myself, if that makes sense.
I understand. Well, that's good then that there are changes being made
Oh yeah.
because I know you didn't really have too many great experiences yourself
Well,
early
I
on.
had, yeah, I had a physician assistant look at me straight in the face, because what they tell you is when you go to the VA, they say you need to tell them everything that's going on with you and any pre-existing conditions you had that are now really, really bothering you after deployment. Okay. And so, so I had the PA, I gave her the whole rundown of issues I was having. And she looked me straight in the face and said, "Are you just trying to get more money out of the VA?"
Amazing.
Yeah. And that was my last appointment.
Well, I can understand why it was. My
Yeah.
goodness.
I was super impressed.
So, Michael, when you did your tours, did you see a lot of action out there?
Well, as a support guy, I was mainly back on the fob doing what I needed to do. But I mean, there was, there were rockets launched on a regular basis, and there were mortars that would come in pretty regular, and there were a few close calls. I had one duty I had to do where I had to take a truck outside the wire, and I had a couple of Humvees with me, and I did get buzzed by a rocket.
Oh my.
And
Crazy.
well, it's okay. It's somewhat of a funny story in the fact that the civilian counterparts were not allowed to take anything outside the wire. Okay, and so they would go through, and they had septic trucks that had to go outside and get dumped, and so that was our job. All right, we had to go out fully armored and dump these septic trucks. So I was driving one of those trucks when I got buzzed by a rocket.
Oh man,
Yeah.
that must have freaked you out a bit.
Well, I could feel the air off it when it went by. Yeah, they were shooting at a
Oof.
tower, and we happened to be perfectly in line with the tower as we were coming out. And yeah, you could hear it. The guy in the Humvee in front of us locked up his brakes because he heard it. I felt it. It was moving pretty fast. I didn't quite see it, but I felt it come by the window, and it landed about 50 feet behind the Humvee behind me and didn't explode.
Damn.
But well, do you want another instance as well?
Sure. I mean, go
Okay,
ahead. I
well,
mean, that's pretty
here-
incredible.
Here was my big story. First deployment. So I was running the civilian gate, which is where all of the civilians came in when they wanted meetings with any of the higher ups inside. So all of the informants would come to the civilian gate, all of the Iraqi police would come, all of the Iraqi army would come. Anybody who was going to come in and have conference with any of the higher ups inside had to come to my gate, and they had to get approval from me, basically. So I showed up one morning. I went into the main area and I checked out any alerts, and there were alerts for stolen ambulances and stolen Iraqi uniforms. And so that's just so you know, hey, just because you see an ambulance or a uniform doesn't necessarily mean they're actually Iraqi medics or Iraqi soldiers. So I got out to the gate. None of my contingent was there yet. They were running heavy operations that day, so the tower crews were on a skeleton crew. So I actually had mechanics that were covering the tower that was on my gate. Okay. So they were running skeleton. So anyway, I got there. I knew one of the guys up in the tower. He yelled down at me that there was somebody standing at the gate already. Or there was a guy standing down by the tower. He had come up the walk, which was barricaded a little bit, and he was waiting because my guy in the tower had a gun on him. And he was like, don't go any further. So I was still in full battle rattle, which just means I had all of my gear on.
Right.
And I went out, and at that point, I had learned enough Arabic that I could muscle my way through a conversation if I needed to.
Smart. Yes.
So yeah, so here I've got an Iraqi soldier standing out by the tower, and I can see when I get to him, just out by the gate that we haven't opened yet, is an ambulance with 2 Iraqi soldiers standing by it. So I've got flags going off already, right?
Right.
So the soldier I'm talking to, he's trying to talk, and he has very little English, and so we're going back and forth about what it is he needs. And finally it comes out. He says weapon. I get that they got shot up. They had confiscated this ambulance and they were bringing it to us. And he said weapon. He kept saying weapon. And finally, after a little bit, I finally got out of him bomb. And he was trying to tell me there were explosives. And I was like, crap.
Oh yeah.
So I called up to the main, and they were like, "Well, your guys aren't there yet, but they needed it investigated because this ambulance was sitting right at the gate, and the supply recon guys were coming out any minute to go on supply run, and they would have to run right by that ambulance." And I was concerned about if it was a VBID, which is just a vehicle-borne IED, vehicle bomb.
Mm-hmm.
I was concerned that if they set that, if that's what it was, and they set it off while that convoy was going by, that was a problem, obviously. So I told my guy in the tower, I said, I want binoculars on this guy, and I want weapons trained. I said, I'm going to go out. I'm going to at least bring him into the parking lot and get him off the main supply route. So he's got a gun on him. I start walking out there. The closer I get to this ambulance, I can see the windows are gone. And a little closer, so another flag goes up. I keep going. Now I see bullet holes in the side of the ambulance.
Uh-oh.
And I'm like, oh my God. So, and now I've got 3 Iraqi police out there, but I've got 2 guys in the tower with guns on them. And so I figured, well, I highly doubt they want to just blow up one American, but if they blast it, at least they're not going to kill several. So I get out there, and there's a guy sitting in the back. He opens the sliding door to step out, and from the back of the front driver's seat all the way to the back of the ambulance are mortar rounds and rockets, explosives, and they're stacked all the way up to the bottom of the windows. And that's the most explosives I've seen in any one place.
Damn.
So long story short, I got them into the parking lot. Turned out that they were actually Iraqi soldiers, and I got EOD down there.
Ah, yes.
And EOD comes walking through my tent, and I stopped him. I said, you're going to want to bring your vehicle out. And they're like, yeah, whatever. I'll go look. 5 minutes later, they're coming back. Hey, we need to take our vehicle out. I'm like, yeah, that's what I told you.
That's funny.
But yeah, so it all turned out good. But I'll tell you what, there was
some close calls though.
Yeah, there was a definite pucker factor there for a little while. And when the guy got out of the van, my guys in the tower had eyes on that he could see right in the van, and he said he about crapped his pants as well. So
yeah, that's intense, man. I have to give everyone credit who could actually stand there and go through all of this sort of thing. I could only imagine what was going through your head.
Well, there was a lot going through my head, like, is this it?
Is this it? Exactly.
Is this it?
Jesus.
But yeah, it all turned out. And those guys joked with me. They came to the FOB several times later on, and they would all joke about it. But yeah, it was a little stressful.
Oh yes. And of course, I did want to get your opinion on Chad Littlefield. I wanted to get your take on the film American Sniper, which was a book from Chris Kyle, if I remember correctly. Did I get that right? Chad Littlefield. He was gunned down.
I'll be honest, I haven't watched the movie. I'm not huge on war movies.
Well, I kind of felt that you would say that. I was also going to say, you don't really watch any of these movies, do you?
No, I don't. But they're
understood.
But, you're not wrong to think that a soldier would, because most soldiers would. But for me, it's just,
gotta be traumatizing, sort of, to see some of these things.
Well, it's actually more irritating to see Hollywood's rendition of, I'm trying to remember the name of the movie that came out and actually got an Academy Award or an Emmy or something here. God, I'll have to think about it. But
Black Hawk Down was also another very popular movie back in 2001, I recall.
Black Hawk Down.
It was a good movie, I thought. I don't know if you saw that, but
no, I didn't see that one. But the one that really cranked me up.
Which one got you?
Look, what's that?
Which one got you?
I'm trying to remember the name of it. I can see it was the guy who played Hawkeye in the Avengers. He was in it. It was he was an EOD guy.
Ah, okay.
You remember which one I'm talking about?
Trying to remember. It does sound familiar though.
Ah, crap.
We'll eventually remember.
I'll think of it.
Yeah, eventually it'll come. Oh wait, The Hurt Locker.
Oh my God, yeah.
That's the worst.
Got Academy Awards, worst rendition of what actually happens in Iraq ever. If you watch that movie and you think for 2 seconds that that's how things happen in Iraq, you are delusional.
I only lasted about 30 minutes watching it until I just couldn't watch it anymore. To be completely honest, I didn't. It wasn't really what I expected, to be honest with you.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, I mean, it's Hollywood's rendition. And then, the movie that came out about the SEALs, uh, I forget the name of it, but I watched that with a friend of mine because he really wanted to see it. And it was actual SEALs, and they actually helped choreograph the movie. And that movie was spot on everything, but it got horrible reviews. Whereas you got The Hurt Locker, which was complete and absolute and utter crap, and was really just a disservice to the military, and it got rave reviews.
Well, that's the biasness of Hollywood.
Yeah, exactly, which is why I don't watch war movies.
You didn't even like, yeah, you didn't even like G.I. Jane.
Yeah, I did see that.
I liked that movie.
Yeah, that was pretty good.
Demi Moore actually did a great job in that one.
Yep. Saving Private Ryan, I did watch that one. That one was really good. I thought that was very well done.
That's a great film. Classic, one that anytime it's on DirecTV, which is what I have, anytime that's on, I have to watch it.
Yeah, no, I mean, it is. I would watch it again. It is very good.
Oh yes,
and it's actually hard to watch because people, and forgive me if I ramble about this, but
it's all right.
In the very beginning, when the old guy goes to the grave, I think it's the beginning of the movie when he goes to the grave and he asks his wife to tell him that his life has been worth it, basically.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people don't understand that coming home is harder than leaving. And that really is, especially if a soldier comes home without somebody that he left with.
Yes.
See what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So so for me watching that movie, there's a few instances in that movie where just referencing, how guys feel about missing home or coming back or, those affect me.
It brings it home.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I hear you. I would expect that to happen.
What's that?
I said I would expect that to happen.
Yeah. And this is it for war movies, but the only other war movie I saw that I actually really liked was the one Mel Gibson did, We Were Soldiers.
Another great film.
Yeah, that one really brings it home. I enjoy watching it, but it's tough to watch all at the same time.
By the way, before we wrap this up with the war movies, Gang of Four in the chat room, he brings up Full Metal Jacket and Platoon, which were also classics.
Yep, they were classics. And I did see Platoon. No, actually, I think I saw Full Metal Jacket too. That was before I deployed, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
So things weren't that difficult for me to watch per se. But as I understand it from Vietnam vets, there was a lot of truth in both those movies.
Oh yeah, they had a different side of issues. One veteran I know, he does suffer from some of the after effects of some of the mustard gas.
Oh yeah, there's a lot of that, and it's unfortunate that they don't get their due, so to speak.
It really is. It's very unfortunate the way a lot of them have been treated, even going back in the past. A lot of them were treated horribly, and we still see that today.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
of course, in some cases they overcorrect. So
I haven't really been around too much of that, but I'm going to take your word for it.
Well, it doesn't help. I saw some of your guys in the chat room talking about Ambien.
Oh boy!
And they were joking about Ambien, and I'll tell you what, they hand out Ambien to soldiers in a Pez dispenser when they're having sleep problems, and that stuff's horrible. I would never take it just because I knew its history, so to speak, and what was in it, and there was just no way I was gonna. I already had sleep problems. I didn't need more problems.
Ambien is pretty bad. That stuff, if you take it and you're not anywhere near sleep, that stuff could really mess with your brain's chemistry. And
absolutely,
those highs that it brings you, you'll start crying on Ambien,
which is not helpful to a suicidal soldier.
Not at all. That stuff is not good for you, and I would have to assume it's probably a lot better than what the Nazis were being handed out when they were taking meth.
Yeah, I would think so.
Both horrible. But moving forward, in 2018 and 2019, so far has been littered with plenty of virtual signaling and this Me Too era, where
Mhm.
any accusation can ruin your career and livelihood,
Mhm.
it's been pretty tremendous to sit back and observe this human behavior watching clashing political ideologies plagued with identity politics. It's pretty entertaining, Michael, even though that's not the right word most people would choose to describe it, but it has been quite interesting to sit back and watch it all, right?
Yes, absolutely it has. I mean, it's interesting how they want to define society now. They want everybody to be so the same that nobody is any longer unique.
And that's a problem.
That's a big problem. Yeah.
It really is. And I know you talked a little bit about this on your show when
hmm
the Gillette commercial came out.
I did touch on the Gillette commercial. Yeah. The Gillette commercial, there was a lot of people, a lot of guys thought, oh, what's the big deal? And then other people thought, oh, it's a huge deal. And really what it comes down to is it doesn't matter what subtleties or non-subtleties there are. I mean, there is straight up an attack on men, and it's not just coming from women. A lot of times it comes from other men. So you got the whole Me Too movement, you got the whole toxic masculinity movement. You've got, I mean, take your pick. There's a million different ways that if you're male, you're wrong. If you're alive and breathing and male, you should just go put yourself in a hole and die.
Yeah, the fact that
Eh,
you're even defending men right now, Michael,
Oh yeah,
makes you a target of
yep,
scrutiny.
yep, and I'm okay with that.
Me too.
But but a lot of people think, well, not a lot. When people look at the sedated man and they see that my business card when I hand it out says helping Christian men return to power. Okay, now a lot of people take that power the wrong way, and I have it on there on purpose. It's a conversation starter. I have a tremendous amount of respect for women, and I think that women are being hurt by the feminist movement, not being helped. Okay,
Agreed.
that they're making these women who want to live traditionally or feel that that is what their focus should be. Or I mean, I can't tell you, my wife's been a stay-at-home mom for years, and she has gotten flack for it.
Oh yes,
You know,
I could imagine that. And
yeah,
by the way, I just wanted to quickly say the Me
no,
Too movement and the various individuals who have lied about their experiences have really messed up what I believe to be something that had intentions of being positive, and it didn't take long before various feminists out there to get involved with this and turn it into something it was not intended to be. That's just my take on it. I'm not quite sure if that's accurate or not, but that's
no,
what it seems
I
like to
would
me.
agree.
Yeah, we see this toxic femininity.
Yeah, there you go.
That's what it is, and it hasn't really been said much, but that's exactly what this is, and it's something that continues to plague us and it goes over the general public's head. And
Well, I mean,
I receive plenty of backlash from the soccer moms out there who have conflicting ideologies. And I understand those few individuals out there who feel that way, and they know exactly why they do.
yeah. Well, I mean, this is where the whole organic parenting thing is coming from too. Where you just let your kids be, just let them grow into who they are, and so you've got men who are just supposed to not be aggressive, not show aggression, just let their child blossom. And then the moms are supposed to do the same. Just let your child blossom. That's bull crap. All right. Moms and dads are there for a reason. They're like offices or like positions in an office. When you go to a business and you are not happy with the service, who do you want to talk to? You want to talk to the boss.
Right.
Nobody has an issue with that. Nobody even thinks twice about it, but make a suggestion that two people are in charge and one of those people should have the last say within a household, and people's heads will explode. Okay. It's the same thing. Men and women, that are moms and dads and husbands and wives, obviously, it's okay for them to discipline within their own homes. It's okay for them to decide together on things they need to do, and it's okay for one of them to have the last say, so long as the other one trusts enough to let that happen. So they want the natural order of things, and I'm not saying that the natural order is that men are dictators and women are subservient. That
Sure.
is not it at all.
Hmm.
Scripturally speaking, this is my rant. Sorry,
That's okay. Don't worry.
Scripturally,
We like rants here.
we like rants.
Yes.
Scripturally speaking, Scripture calls women to be strong leaders in the house, and it calls them to be entrepreneurs in the marketplace. And a lot of people don't realize that.
Hmm.
Women are elevated in the New Testament. They're not subservient. All right. Now, yes, in Scripture, it does say that the man is the head of the house as Christ is the head of the church. But it also talks about how Christ gave himself up for his bride, and every man should be willing to do the same. So the man's job within the realm of Scripture is to be the servant leader, all right, where he leads through his service to his family, where he sacrifices everything for them. That is his job. He's to make sure they're fed. He's to make sure that these things are taken care of. And the trust between the husband and wife is immeasurable. Because in Proverbs, it says that the heart of her husband trusts in her, which means that she is being a trustworthy woman. He trusts that she can dictate and take care of the house without him standing there 24/7. She's not subservient. She's a partner. But like every business, somebody has to have the last say if something can't be agreed upon. But normally things are agreed upon. It's not a big deal.
Yes, and lots of women nowadays are reaching higher levels than men in the workplace for the
Yep.
most part. Lots of them are a lot more educated than most of their counterparts.
Yep.
Lots of them outweigh men in college. Those are just facts.
Yeah, the women who complain about unequal pay and unequal positions within companies, really, they just want to whine. I'm sorry. That's just what they want to do. And the reason is because any woman or any man, for that matter, who is worth their grit, who is not getting paid what they should or getting promoted where they feel they should be moving on, should be going where they can get it, or should be starting their own thing.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. And if you're sitting in a position where you're just complaining about how it's unequal, you're part of the problem. You're not part of the solution.
Every workplace I've ever been that had women in them, they have always been treated well, and I've seen a lot of them get ahead more than the guys, in my opinion.
No, I've seen
And
that
what
too.
I've
But,
witnessed,
it's fake
yeah.
news wants you to believe otherwise.
A lot of workplaces, yeah, a lot of workplaces I've seen, women are still getting ahead. It's
Yeah,
not exactly
absolutely.
what the media says, but I've seen it for the longest time. Every little mediocre job I ever had, I always saw a woman get promoted somewhere.
Yeah, absolutely.
I never got
And
angry at that. It never bothered
no,
me.
if they're qualified, they're qualified. What's the big deal?
Exactly. So
Yeah.
it's not a problem to me, but I know there's lots of people on both sides of the coin here that make up these arguments for it, and it's just rather silly because that's not reality.
No, it's not reality.
And that's where we go back to the media.
The propaganda.
Right.
That's a word you don't hear much anymore.
Propaganda, exactly, and it's true. And I'm just a bit concerned with where all of these things are headed, Michael. A new paradigm shift is on the horizon, and I worry about the younger and impressionable youth out there who have been subjected to a lot of unrealistic expectations.
Yeah. No, I mean, you're absolutely right. But once again, you go back to, if you remove masculinity, men are taking a step back because they're being told it's wrong. Okay. Now, as a result, women are having to step into a role they shouldn't have to step into. And so now you've got some women who are overbearing. And then comes the organic parenting, where you just let the kid flow and you just let them, figure it out, and you don't really punish them, and they don't learn jack. Okay. They don't learn life skills. They don't learn what it means to earn something. They don't understand consequence. And that is part of the reason, I believe, for such a high suicide rate amongst that age group, especially within the military, because they haven't had adequate life skills, if everything's handed to them, then suicide looks like an easy out.
Yeah. And suicide is the new black. Lots of
Yeah.
people are doing it nowadays.
Yeah, now it's like a game.
It's incredible to see that so many people taking their own lives, and that's just always so weird to read that someone went through the whole process of trying to kill themselves, and they went through it all and they did it successfully.
Yeah. Yeah.
Blows my mind really. And going back to what we're just talking about though, in terms of women, tagging back to all of that, what we mentioned
Mhm.
earlier, now different articles have surfaced in terms of women mentoring men. Once again, I
Yep.
don't find that to be a good idea, quite frankly.
No, in fact, I did a podcast on why women should never mentor men.
Oh, did
But
you?
yeah, I did.
Oh, nice.
But
Very good.
so okay, so everything that I say is going to have a scriptural base. It's going to have a religious base. So as far as scripture goes, there are two roles. The woman has an absolutely vital role, and the man has an absolutely vital role. Okay.
Absolutely.
So in that, men cannot tell women how to be moms or wives, and women cannot tell men how to be husbands or fathers. Okay. They can make suggestions to each other. They can say, hey, I see this, but and they can discuss it, but they can't mentor each other that way. That's just something we have to learn. That's something we do as a team as we go. So for a woman to mentor a man, that would mean that he has basically, well, for lack of a better term, he's handed in his man card. He said, okay, I can't do this. I need the woman to tell me, which gives you an indication of how weak the man has become.
And some men are like that. Some men prefer to
Yes.
be the stay home at dad type.
Yeah, because it's easy, quite honestly.
And
They would tell you
Mhm.
they would tell you something else, but to be perfectly honest, it's easy.
Do you find that to be something negative? A man wanting to take on that role while the woman goes and becomes the provider.
Oh, you want to get me in trouble?
No, not at all. This
No,
is just a
I'm
place
joking.
for, yeah, I hear you, but I just want everyone to know that this is a place for open discussion, and I'd never be afraid to disagree or agree with anything that I say or
Oh, no.
callers. It's all good.
No, I'm kidding. Anybody who's listened to my podcast knows I'm very direct and I don't pull any punches.
Love that.
So yeah, it is a problem. I mean, I do know people who claim to be Christian where the guy is staying home and the woman is working. Now, in some cases, you've got a guy with a medical problem and he can't physically work.
Right.
Okay. And so the woman goes to work. However, this goes back to an earlier conversation I had where you won't find mediocre Christians in Scripture. So if there are no mediocre Christians in Scripture, that means that they had a cause, that they had a passion, and that they got stuff done regardless of limiting conditions. So if a guy can't physically work anymore, why is he not learning a new internet skill or a new
trade?
work from home,
Yeah.
a new trade, a new work from home skill, go back to school? I don't give a crap what it is. Why is he settling to stay at home with the kids and okay with his wife going out? Because it creates an imbalance.
It does. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, there's nothing wrong with women being moms and men being dads. There's, women can't be moms. They're not physically built, or can't be dads. They're not physically built for it. Nor can dads be moms. They're not physically built for it. Nor are either one of us wired for those jobs.
Yeah, going back to moms and dads and these relationships, especially with the single parent household, I
Mhm.
definitely do recall being back in elementary school, playing with the other kids. I always knew which kid was raised by a single mother.
Mhm.
I always knew. It's the weirdest thing because it's something that growing up, you don't have this realization. Growing up, you don't understand a lot of things. But
Yeah.
in my head, even back then, even being a little boy, I always knew the kids who didn't have a father because they always had these, and this might get me in trouble, but they always had these feminine traits. You couldn't
Yes.
roughhouse with them. You couldn't really do a lot of the same things you could with other boys.
And they were more whiny.
More exactly.
Yes.
It's
Now
not it's not PC to say that, but
No.
this is a non-PC place.
Exactly. So, I have a tremendous amount of respect for single moms who
Same
end up
here.
in a bad position.
Right.
And I wouldn't point fingers and say you're a bad person by
Of course.
any stretch.
Right.
I mean, this is about, you know,
Observation.
unfortunately, I mean, divorce is rampant. It's 50% now.
Oh yes, very high.
You've got originally it was mostly men leaving their wives, but now I see as many wives leaving their husbands and leaving their kids. And so you've got, I think, a pretty even mix anymore of single dads and single moms. In fact, one of my best friends, who is also a part-time soldier, he has 3 girls and he's a single dad.
Ooh.
And he struggles, but he'll be the first to tell you, I can't teach them how to be girls or women. And so he
Exactly.
really relies on the women close in his life to help
Mhm.
him do that.
That's a tough gig, man.
Yeah, exactly.
Being-
And it's equally tough
Mhm.
for the women.
Being a guy raising all girls, that is difficult. Even so, for a woman having to raise just all boys too.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, my wife and I, we had 5 boys.
Good lord.
Yeah, and
That's
she
a lot of
homeschooled.
kids.
So yeah, so it's nothing against women. It's just they're just not built to raise a boy by themselves. I mean, there's a lot of women that are like, I don't need a man, and I can raise this kid to be a good man. Okay, only so far. Sorry.
It goes back to nature.
Yeah, only so far. You can only do so much. I could not raise a girl by myself to be a full-fledged woman without the help of other women that I trusted. I wouldn't try to.
Yes. So your friend tells you about this, and he expresses how difficult it is, and it's good
Absolutely.
that he brings in women that women that are strong, good women.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, they need those role models.
Exactly. And boys really need the male role models.
They need a male role model too.
They need a male role model. I mean people can argue this. Like I said, it absolutely baffles me why this is an issue. Because what, women want to be men? Why? Why would you want to be a man? I don't want to be a woman. I don't know any men that want to be women. Of course, nowadays, you got all this gender confusion.
You know
and
what's crazy, Michael?
I think that's produced as well.
What's crazy, Michael, just to pause you on that thought.
Yeah, sorry.
No, it's okay. I just wanted to quickly tag on to what we're talking about here, that 27 of the deadliest mass shooters, 26 of them were fatherless.
Yeah, shocker.
It should not shock anyone. And of course,
Exactly.
all these kids also under different medication.
Hmm.
So this goes back to what we're talking about.
We're not even talking about how many of them were Democrat or Republican, but that's a total side note. Hmm.
It is. But since we are on the subject of children, though,
Yep.
they're here in I believe it's Orange County, if I recall correctly, seeing the article. Now California is about to implement a new abortion and homosexuality promoting sex education lessons.
Oh my God.
And the district says parents can pull kids from it.
That doesn't surprise me. California is kind of the front runner in those things.
Yeah, I'm in California, and I fully am aware of a lot of these things that are going on in the classrooms, and a lot of parents aren't even fully aware of it. These
Yeah.
kids, really, again, it goes back to kids just being kids. Nowadays, they're having all these really adult things getting pushed onto them.
Yep.
These kids shouldn't be worried or even thinking about if I identify with being a girl or a boy.
Yeah. I mean, like 4 and 5-year-olds, what do they know? Well, they know they like cookies.
Exactly. So
Don't tell me that they know whether they want to be a boy or a girl, and that you're going to just dress them accordingly. That's abuse.
You just
That is straight up
complicate.
abuse.
You complicate natural order.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's really sad to see.
Uh-huh. And angering too. I mean, but there's no real, I don't want to say it. There is no real value of life anymore. They're not teaching kids that there's a value of life. They teach kids that you can have basically full-term abortions now, and that life is subjective. It's what you think it is,
Right.
you
And
know. And
for the
go ahead.
record, Michael, I'm not against the homosexuals or the trannies out there.
Mhm.
Lots of those people actually listen to the show, and
Right.
I still love them. I don't care what they're doing in their personal lives. But when it comes to kids and this issue, it just has me perturbed. I just don't see how that makes any sort of logical sense. I don't see the reasoning behind those sort of decisions to place on a kid and to implement these sort of adult decisions and
Yeah. No,
bring them up to
totally
them at
agree.
such an early age. I mean, that's crazy.
Like I said, they know what kind of cookies they like. That's about all they know at that age. You know, I joke with my sons because, my sons are adults now, and they'll say something and I'll look at them and I'll say, "Well, where do you think you learned that?" Kids
That's yeah,
kids know exactly what their parents tell them to know.
correct. All
So this
comes from home.
organic parenting thing is just bullcrap.
Yeah, it's unusual to see.
Yeah. And let me just clarify one thing as well.
Go ahead.
I don't hate homosexuals and
No,
I
of
don't
course
hate
not.
transgenders. A
Yeah,
lot of people think that because of who I am and what I'm pushing that I
you
would
ought to.
hate those types of
Yeah.
people. I don't hate them.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's been so much polarization. This is also part of what I do with the Sedated Man. There is so much polarization now that people can't have a conversation about things they disagree on without wanting to stab each other by the time it's done. And
Yeah,
I really
exactly.
want to bring forth a place where people can have passionate conversations and disagreements and still leave the table friends.
Exactly. And that's something that well, during the whole election, we saw people divided
Yeah.
insanely. People lost friends, they lost family,
Hmm.
members who they were once close to, simply because of opposing political ideologies.
Yep.
That should not happen.
No.
You shouldn't hate someone personally because they voted for X, Y, and Z.
No, I totally agree.
Yeah, it just makes no sense.
No, it's baffling.
Yeah, but it is interesting to see that sort of behavior, that psychological mindset that some individuals do carry with them. And again, I mentioned this earlier. I'm not. Well, you were listening to the first gentleman before you, correct?
Yeah, I caught the tail end of it. Yep.
Yeah, it's. I mentioned some of this to him as well. And kind of funny, actually. Right when things were starting, I actually had another Michael who was talking to me on another line, and I forgot to hit mute on that channel. So I was calling out for him. Wow, I had the other guest on there baffled, wondering why I was calling out to Michael.
Yeah.
I was going to say, I wonder if Michael Baker was wondering if I was calling out to him.
No.
Okay, good. You didn't catch that. It was
No,
kind
I
of
didn't catch that.
it was kind of embarrassing. I'm talking into the ether.
It's all good.
Okay, cool. Yes, but going back to what we're just talking about here. Oh man, I almost feel like I'm getting lost in my thoughts here. But yeah, just to add on to the whole people assuming just because you take the stance that you automatically despise homosexuals and the whole transgender thing.
Yeah.
People just automatically assume that for whatever reason. And I think a lot of that has to do with the media. Going back to that, the propaganda machine.
No, I would totally agree. I mean, my stance, my convictions are not popular, but all of the things that have been laid out before, about people like me who believe things like me have
Sure,
been cranked out by the media machine that we're evil, that I am the enemy, so
which you're not.
no,
I truly
no,
don't think so.
yeah, it's okay to have passion and conviction about things. It's okay to disagree. It's okay to say, no, I absolutely disagree with how you're living your life, but I don't hate you as a person,
Right.
you
And
know?
that all goes back to what I was saying about the whole divide, the whole division amongst all of us now.
Yeah, exactly. And I
Pretty
agree. It's
crazy.
it's unfortunate.
It is very unfortunate. I'm not quite sure again where this will lead us. Can't really
That's a
you can't really tell nowadays who's being genuine and not.
Yeah.
Terrible time.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
But
And
there's hope.
you think there's hope?
Oh, I think there is. Yeah, I wouldn't do what I did, or I wouldn't do what I do with the sedated man if I didn't.
That's true. And tell people where they could find the sedated man, by the way.
Well, when I record the sedated man, I go live on Instagram, Facebook, and I record for a YouTube channel as well. So if you look up the sedated man on any of those platforms, you can find it. And then my main platform for podcasting is Anchor, but you can find the sedated man on any podcasting platform pretty much out there.
Very good. Very good. And I do have some other things I do want to get into here with you, if you don't mind.
Yeah. No, absolutely. Let's go.
Okay, cool. Very, very good. And on a side note, are there any shows that you listen to, Michael, on a regular basis, if there is any?
Yeah, actually. In fact, I had them listed here. I listened to, of course, I listened to Brendan Bouchard just because I like him.
Oh, cool. Okay.
But I also listened to Warriors and Wild Men, which is a somewhat off-color Christian podcast, but I think the guys are right on the money with their message.
I haven't heard of that one.
Yeah, and then of course I listened to you.
Well, thank you so much.
You're very welcome.
I do appreciate that.
Yep.
I'm always surprised about who actually listens to the program.
Oh yeah, why is that?
Oh, well, for instance, the program, it covers all sorts of crazy topics, and sometimes there is some very dark and dry humor.
Yeah.
And well, some people enjoy that, and I'm always baffled by those who listen who are in the older demographic, and one of those being a judge in New Mexico.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and I always think, why would you listen to my show? It's insane. But that's why he listens. He likes it. He likes the entertainment value and some of the news segments we hit here.
Well, you don't have to believe everything that's coming across for it to be entertaining. Yeah.
True.
Yeah.
Very true. And speaking of news, I did want to ask you about Chris Christie.
What about him?
The fine Chris Christie, New Jersey's own Chris Christie, who I said will never be the president of the United States.
Is he running again?
I don't think so. He would be a fool to run again if he does.
Yep,
but
I would agree.
Most people from New Jersey, well, anyone out of New Jersey, they won't be the president. I'm sorry to say. That's going to give me some heat, but I'm just being honest.
I understand why you say that. I don't necessarily disagree. I don't think there's horrible people in New Jersey, but I don't know.
I don't think there's horrible people, but most people from New Jersey seem to shoot themselves in the foot politically.
Yeah. Well, I don't think anybody out of Montana is going to be president anytime soon either, and that's the state I live in.
Yeah, well, you're probably right.
Yeah, exactly.
And now, of course, speaking of Chris Christie, he had lots of things to say about Michael Cohen. He's been going around talking about that. And Michael Cohen, another guy who's been making the waves as well. I have a bit of a news clip here if you are down with me to play it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, let's play that. Let's see. Oh, yes, I have one here where he talks about Roger Stone. I'm not quite sure if you heard that audio clip. You heard that, yes or no?
No, I did not.
Okay, let's play that. Play that first.
Mm-hmm. Mr. Stone told Mr. Trump that he had just gotten off the phone with Julian Assange, and that Mr. Assange told Mr. Stone that within a couple of days, there would be a massive dump of emails that would damage Hillary Clinton's campaign.
How can we corroborate what you are saying?
I don't know, but I suspect that the special counsel's office and other government agencies have the information that you're seeking.
Yeah, for those that don't know, that was Mr. Cohen there, who has been sentenced to 3 years in prison for those that haven't been paying attention. What do you make of those comments?
I think it's interesting that he threw stuff out there that he said, I don't know how you can prove that, but I'm sure it's out there somewhere.
That is pretty funny.
I mean, okay, so why don't you have it? Why are you bringing it up if you can't prove it, if you can't verify it? Are you hoping we'll have sympathy or?
But wasn't Michael
yeah,
Cohen supposed to be a good guy?
they're all supposed to be good guys at one point or another, aren't they?
That's what I
So-
learned. When it comes to money, though, everyone
Yeah.
is a good guy until that income just goes away.
Exactly. And I haven't followed Michael Cohen that close, so I haven't followed him close enough to have an opinion on whether he's a good guy or a bad guy. But really, a statement like that is just you're trying to buy time.
Well, it goes a little bit further. Here's another clip.
Okay, go for
I'm
it.
ashamed that I chose to take part in concealing Mr. Trump's illicit acts rather than listening to my own conscience. I am ashamed because I know what Mr. Trump is.
Uh-oh.
He is a racist, he is a con man, and he is a cheat.
A racist and a con man and a cheat.
Is this where you ask me what I think about Trump?
No, this is where I ask you what your take is on what Cohen just said there.
Well, okay, so he's in a corner. He's looking for sympathy. All right. Obviously, he went to jail. So I think he's going to say whatever he can to try to salvage whatever is left of any reputation or character he might have had with anybody, because it's really easy to throw stones at the president because that's what everybody's doing. So I think he was still looking for sympathy. I think he was still trying to find whatever he could get at that point.
Pretty interesting stuff.
Yeah.
Pretty wild stuff.
Yeah.
And of
I mean, is it
course-
true? Is
Mhm.
it true? Well, he still had nothing there outside of a confession, but a confession from a guy who had no proof of anything.
Yeah, we don't know.
No, we don't know.
We don't know. We weren't there.
Nope.
But of course, I wasn't there when the Titanic sank, but I know that it went down.
Oh yeah, exactly.
By the way, we do have a call here. Let's take a call. That's
Awesome.
always fun, right? Taking a little call.
Oh yeah.
Oh, yes. Let's take that call. Caller, you are live on the air. What's up? Uh-oh, caller.
Yeah, I don't know about the Chris Christie thing. I think he's actually just kind of going off the script.
Oh, yes. You're calling about Chris Christie.
But yeah, you were just on that.
Yeah. Chris Christie, another man who, like I just said, he will never be the president.
No, he probably just wants to be important so he doesn't get arrested for the tunnel.
He's
There you
been
go.
he's been out there a lot though lately, making the
Yeah.
rounds there.
Well, he's trying
people-
to.
Some people like attention.
That's what Chris Christie seems to be doing here. He's really been
Yeah.
Well-
talking to all sorts of different media personalities and media platforms. He was on CNN there, and he said Trump lied about things he didn't need to lie about.
Who cares?
So Chris Christie's out there doing his thing. And again, I have to be honest with all of you. I don't support any political party. I'm just pretty bipartisan.
These are all just characters.
It almost seems that way. And I said that
Yeah,
early
yeah.
on about the Trump administration having more lineup changes than a Major League Baseball team. And I don't know if that's because it's hard to find good work these days, or just some of these individuals are just not who they claim to be. And my only thing with Trump was his alleged ties to Jeffrey Epstein. And of course, his involvement and his ongoing relationship with those in Goldman Sachs. That's another thing
Mhm.
that really had me perturbed in his whole presidency. And it's still something that does bother me. I've always been honest
Mike?
about that. Go ahead, caller.
Yeah, is your guest still on?
Yeah, he's here. Go ahead if you have a question
go
for
ahead.
him.
Yeah. How is Montana?
Cold.
Very cold.
We've gotten
Yeah,
a
well,
ton of snow here in
So
the last week and a
still
half.
got the.
So,
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Still like under freezing all the time.
Well, right now it's supposed to get to 33 below tonight, and I think when I came in here to do this, it was about 9 below.
Damn.
Yep. Exactly.
That's
I did a
cold.
job up there in Kalispell,
Yeah.
doing a train job up through Whitefish.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was the funnest time in the world.
What time of the
The
year was
local, it was in fall. So
Oh,
I
okay, that's why.
escaped the actual harsh that you're dealing with right now.
it? Yeah.
But the locals up there were the best.
Oh, yeah, there's a lot of good. Well, Montana only has 1 million people in the state.
Well, yeah.
Yep.
I'm from Idaho, so we're growing because all the Californians are moving in.
Yeah, some of those bump
So,
over here, so I hear you.
Yeah. And then from there, the locals up there, hell, hanging out with the locals and like doing the VFW and whatnot, it was great.
Yeah, no, they have a really strong VFW and American Legion here in the state.
Exactly, and not here. You never see that here. It's
Oh,
amazing.
really? Oh, I'm sorry to hear that.
Yeah. Well, no, that's true. Because I saw that there, and then I see this here. I can't
Mhm.
even possibly believe that Idaho does not have a far, far better setup.
Huh. Well, maybe that's something you should
Yeah.
get in and change.
They're trying to.
Yeah.
And caller,
Anyway,
where are you at, by the way?
in Boise.
In Boise. Okay.
Oh, yeah, I've
Yeah.
spent a lot of time in Boise.
Very nice.
Yeah, it's an okay place. It's
Yep.
kind of growing. It's growing with Californians moving in, but it's okay.
Yep. No, I
Mhm.
like it. I've been going. I went there quite a few times because my unit was attached to the 116th. So
Yeah. Oh, because the National Guard.
Very nice.
My son joined. My son's in the Army.
does he like it?
He's kind of liking it.
Well, good then. He probably needs some of it.
Yeah, it's a plus and a minus, and I have to talk him through a few things once in a while on my command schedules.
Yeah.
But it's okay.
Good.
It's my youngest son, and so he's kind of like doing his own thing.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I know. It's just kind of like how you walk through life.
Yep. Exactly. They all need it.
All right. So anyway, what do you want to do on this political thing there, Mike? The
What do you mean?
Chris Christie thing, and what else?
Oh, Chris Christie. Nothing.
Yeah.
I was just making a conversation about the ongoing drama with Trump and the whole alleged Russian probe. That's
No, that's never going to end.
popular.
No, it's not.
No.
He was actually recently. He was during a rally. I believe he said the whole targeting of him was BS.
Trump
Yeah,
did?
exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't
Huh?
disagree with that.
Yeah. What
And
do you
then also,
Go ahead.
we have not had a president. We have not had a president yet that's been a peace president. Like, other than who?
What do you mean?
There's never been a peace president.
Mm-hmm. Oh, one
Yeah,
that
he's
didn't
trying
have
to
something
actually,
going
like,
on?
let's say, force the Taliban to go ahead and, like, have peace.
Oh,
okay.
Then also pull everybody out of Syria and then have peace there and cause a reparations, not reparations, but just make sure that everything's okay.
yeah.
Do the North Korea at the same time.
Yes, the North Korea, the summit there.
Mm-hmm.
Well, yeah, you see, I don't know. There's a whole bunch of talk on that. And then Jim Stone, you know who that is?
You mean Roger Stone?
No, Jim Stone.
Jim Stone.
No, I don't.
Yeah, you should look at his site once in a while. Yeah, he has an offhand NSA idea of what's going on.
Okay.
But anyway, yeah, I can send you the link if you want.
Sure.
But anyway, so right as soon as all of this stuff like fires up
Mhm.
with peace process going on with Afghanistan, Syria, and North Korea,
Mm-hmm.
lo and behold, we have India and Pakistan going at it.
Yeah, that's another
Yep.
ongoing conflict that does have me a bit worried. Not completely worried, but slightly. It's interesting to see that going on and seeing who jumps on board with that.
Yeah.
Because another country wants to get in that.
No, I don't. No. I think actually the talks that are going on right now is to not get on board.
Well, that's what I would suggest not to do.
Yeah, because everybody's been predicting a regional war for a long time,
Yeah.
and nobody wants it. China does not want this, nor does Russia.
China and
Nobody's
Russia.
going to make.
Yes,
Yeah.
China and Russia are the two superpowers that we definitely have to keep an eye on, especially China and their.
Well, yeah, that's far more serious on the hacking operation.
Lots of AI out there, and China being in the forefront of all this technological warfare that they will be introducing pretty
No,
soon.
China does not have AI.
You don't think so?
Nope.
You don't think they have AI?
No, they have AI, but it's basically, I don't know, 10 years back.
No,
I wouldn't
I
say
have
that.
no doubt they probably stole whatever we have.
They have some pretty powerful stuff, my friend.
Yeah. Yep.
And this comes from lots of my knowledge of China's capabilities comes from Lieutenant Colonel Robert McGinnis, who I believe was just on Fox News talking about this just yesterday, I think. So he does brief me on some of these issues going on out there. Are you familiar with Lieutenant Colonel, by the way, Michael?
Oh, yep.
Me?
Yeah, Lieutenant Colonel Magnus.
I know the name. I'm not super familiar with him himself.
They say Magnus, I meant McGinnis. But yeah, he's been a guest
once
here.
again, yeah, the
Mhm.
name, but not him.
Yeah, Lieutenant Colonel McGinnis. He's been a guest here before. I don't know why I called him Magnus for, but
No, I think I heard him on your show.
yeah, he's very, very intelligent and very much well connected to the Pentagon still.
Yeah, no, it sounded like it, as I recall.
Yeah, he's pretty intimidating slightly.
Oh, is he?
Kinda. I feel like
Well, he
he's
did-
I feel like he's
Didn't
gonna
get
make
where
me.
he was by accident.
That's true. I feel like he's just gonna make me do push-ups all of a sudden. Not sure why.
Oh my God, that's hell.
Yeah, I just feel like he's like a drill instructor almost.
Yeah. Well, like I said, he
Oh.
didn't get where he was by accident.
Yeah, I really do like him though. He definitely has a very good, powerful aura around him. Definitely an alpha male.
Yeah, I would agree.
He's very alpha, and definitely appreciate him being on the program. And caller, anything else? Did you want to ask Michael anything or myself?
No, you're good.
You're
and
good.
also,
Okay.
thank you on the last guest. The last guest you had before.
Yeah, Bernie Taylor.
Yeah, and also, all you have to do is listen to the last Bernie Taylor interview he did with that guy from Northern California.
Hmm.
And I swear on a stack of Bibles that you hands down handled Bernie Taylor far better than that idiot.
Oh my.
Yes. You just have to listen to it halfway. That's all you have to get.
You did that
It
bad,
is
huh?
quite hilarious. Oh, it's that bad.
Ooh.
Seriously, if you're going to actually pull somebody in that's a guest, you have to know at least something.
Well, you have to
Not-
know something and be interested.
Yeah, not that you actually travel internationally and you have an ankle biter dog that you walk on a regular basis and talk about moon cycles. This is not a good thing. But
Yeah.
but if you listen to that in retrospect to what you just did and how you know how to do these things, you just have to do it just once and you'll know.
Well, it's definitely not my first rodeo, that's for sure.
Exactly. So anyway,
Yes. Well, I
have a great Saturday evening, you
yeah,
two.
thank you,
and
man.
great.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, man from Montana.
Thank you.
Amazing.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you for the call,
Yep.
my friend.
Always.
Yeah, don't be shy. Call in whenever you'd like. It's all good.
But no, I'll just rant on.
That's okay. Again, we like rants
All right.
here.
And also, I'm sorry for pissing off your the online people.
Don't worry. They get mad. They get triggered over anything. It's okay.
No,
all
it's
good.
okay.
I love it.
All right.
I like that.
Yeah, always.
Keep triggering people. It's all good.
No, Adele clamps. Just subconscious goes crazy.
It
Have a
does.
good evening, guys. Yep.
You
yep.
too.
Thanks.
Mahalo. And there he goes. A great call that was. Do appreciate those calls. Isn't that fun?
It is. I always tell people that if you're irritated at what I'm saying, at least I know you're listening.
Exactly. It's always good to step on a few toes, Michael.
Oh, yeah.
It really is. It really, really is. And going back to some of the things that we were discussing earlier, just got this random thing in my head about your opinion on these teachers nowadays who are always getting in trouble with their students now. Lots of teachers now sexually assaulting very underage boys all of a sudden. And these are women that are doing it. And a lot of times, to be completely honest with you, one of the last ones that just happened was this woman by the name of Brittany Zamora, 27. And to be honest with you, I'm looking at a screenshot of her right now, and she's not a bad looking woman.
Yeah.
At all. She's actually a very good looking woman. And I believe she was even, or still is, married. And she had this relationship with a 13-year-old boy.
Yep.
Good Lord.
Yeah, you got to wonder what the heck they're thinking.
Why is
What?
this so problematic, though? Why are we seeing so much of this? That's kind of my question for you and anyone out there, really. Why is this a thing? Why is this the new normal all of a sudden?
Well, for one, you got to wonder how much it was happening before it started getting reported all the time.
Right.
But I mean, it goes back to they keep moving boundaries. I mean, so if you have a kid in a public school system and you're not happy with what the teacher's doing, do you have a right to tell the teacher to change it? Well, not typically. So you've got these kids that are there. The school system is telling them, if there's problems at home, you need to tell us. So they're basically degrading the home, and they're telling them that mom and dad are subjective to the school system. And so the teachers then put themselves in a position of authority in the fact that if a teacher rats on a parent, then suddenly the kid is out of the house, because family services will take the kid out of the house before they have any proof that anything's happened. And if you think otherwise, you're delusional. So, and I don't mean you, Michael. I just mean in general.
I can be a little bit. Just a little bit.
We all can. So then you've got all these boundaries that are now moved. Instead of a parent-teacher relationship, now instead of a teacher-student relationship, now it's a guardian-student relationship.
Okay. That's how they're
they're there to protect them from the parents.
I see.
Because the parents, when the kid is in school, have very little say, but parents who is it that they point the finger at first? If their kid's not learning something, it's the teacher.
Yep.
So there's this big ugly circle of things going on, but ultimately the school system will back the teacher typically before they'll back a parent. So unless it's something like this, and then of course they have to back the parent. So you've got all these boundaries that have been removed. You've got all these boundaries that have been moved, and it's no wonder that there's all this stuff going on, because you've got once again back to the 50% divorce rate. There's a reason divorce is happening. Things aren't good at home. There's a whole era of sexless marriage going on, and now you've got a woman who's looking for attention, who spends all this time with her students. And at 13, boys change. And they don't always look like boys anymore.
Right. And by the way, Michael, I'm not sure if you're in the chat room, but I actually put up a photo of the teacher and a screenshot of what she was telling this 13-year-old boy, and it gets pretty explicit.
Oh, does it?
It does, really. It starts off with thinking, what you doing, thinking about your sexy self. Oh, baby, I wish you were with me. I mean, wow. 13 years old.
Yeah, that doesn't surprise me. So yeah, it goes right back to it. You've got all these moved boundaries. Teachers aren't just teachers anymore. They're guardians. You got boys that are changing right around that age. I mean, when I was 12 years old, I shot to 6 foot.
Oh,
And
that's pretty fast.
I hit puberty early, and I had a mustache and almost a full beard. That was at 12.
But were you, but were you thinking of knocking it out of the park with a teacher?
Unfortunately, I think every boy has a teacher they have a crush on coming up through school.
Oh, well, when I was that age, all my teachers were not looking like this one here.
No, I had a couple of teachers that were pretty young.
Did you? Well,
yeah.
I did not have that
in their mid to 20s.
I didn't have that sort of experience. I just had the most awful teachers you could think of. But
yeah,
it's funny because it was always the PE teachers that were always the good-looking ones when I was in school.
Yeah, that happened too. But I never ever thought about hitting on any of them.
Yeah,
No.
I mean that's not something that goes through your mind. And of course, this is from Arizona. The Arizona parents seek $2.5 million from school after teacher accused of molesting the boy. To me, it
Yeah.
sounds like the parents definitely want to get that payday.
Yeah, you think?
Oh yeah,
Because what difference is it
tremendous.
going to make? I mean, is the boy traumatized?
Not at all.
No.
I'm looking at this text, Michael. To me, there is nothing traumatized about, nothing in his head that's traumatized about what conversation is going on and what it's going to lead to. It seems to me like he's pretty much in control.
Yeah, exactly. And
Not-
he was in control when that happened. Well, he was in control to a point. I would almost guarantee that she probably instituted it. But anymore, because kids because organic parenting has become so prevalent, boys and girls, they take liberties that they wouldn't have taken 50 years ago.
I agree. It's just
Yeah,
so
they'll
creepy to see this.
Yeah, no, I agree.
Wow, man. And apparently there was another boy involved that he was sort of like the lookout for them to
Oh, really?
do their business in the classroom as well.
Yeah.
Good lord.
But yeah, I agree. It's become a problem.
It really has. It really has. It's almost like I said, the new normal, where you see so much of this, and of course, their male counterparts. There's been plenty of cases where guys do this sort of thing too,
Yeah.
but I don't think they were being sued for 2.5 million.
No. I would agree. The parents are definitely looking for a payday.
That's a pretty substantial payday.
Yeah. Because what's it really going to pay for?
Well, just for their bills, really, and their car, and
Yeah, exactly.
it's
No.
going to be one of those things.
I highly doubt it'll be anything that has to do with the kid.
Or his college intuition.
Yeah, there you go.
He ain't going to college. And
No.
now he has a pretty tremendous story to tell now.
Yeah, exactly. And you know he's not going to tell it as a traumatized teen.
Nope.
Nope.
Oh, man. Interesting stuff. And of course, moving on to another bit of news here.
Yep.
I hate to do this, but I'm going to.
What?
I'm going to play a little sound bite here, and it's going to be pretty repulsive.
Go for it.
That's Jerry Lee Lewis. He had a bit of a stroke, Michael. Suffered a minor stroke, we were learning, and of course, Jerry Lee Lewis, he is making a bit of a recovery from that, Michael, from the stroke. 83 years old. And if you recall,
He was a pedophile. I
did
recall
marry,
that.
yeah, he did marry his 13-year-old first cousin.
Yeah, pedophile.
What a creep.
You can paint it however you want it. Pedophile.
He is creepy, my friend.
Yeah.
And
he got away with it.
And he got away with it. And it's such a long time ago when he did all this. It's just, how could someone like that get away with doing something that's scandalous?
Well, success, I guess. I don't know. I don't know why the guy never went to jail for it.
I say the same thing about Michael Jackson.
Yeah.
I
know you've gotten some heat for that, haven't you?
Got a lot of heat for that. People just defend him.
Yeah.
A tooth and nail.
Well, I mean, let's be honest. The guy was truly talented. Absolutely
no
talented.
doubt about it. Genius.
Yeah, no doubt about it. But that does not make poor behavior okay. Now, did he do it or didn't he do it? I don't know.
Yeah, we don't
But
know.
he definitely had a lifestyle that hid a lot of things, and that didn't help his cause.
I just know that if he was doing this, any of those sort of behaviors in the more modern time, we would definitely hear Chris Hansen in his future. You
Yeah.
hear this?
I'm Chris Hansen with Dateline NBC.
Yep.
That's what you'd hear.
Yep, exactly. And then they'd start going through it.
Yeah, there's going to be a new documentary HBO will be putting out. They're getting a lot of heat from the Jackson estate. They're being sued for about 10 mil.
Oh, really? For even putting it on?
Exactly. But HBO is basically telling them to kiss their back end, which I respect.
Yeah, I mean, they didn't ask for permission to make it, so.
I'm with them, though. I want them to put this out.
Yeah.
I really
I
do.
mean, you got to take it with a grain of salt like you do anything.
Correct. And
Yeah.
of course, this brings me back to a bit of Florida news because I always mention Florida here at least once. There was a pastor who killed himself days after child porn found on his computer.
Mm-hmm.
And this makes me wonder if you thought about the Pope and if you could forgive him for his actions.
Well, I'm not Catholic.
I know you're not, but can
So,
you forgive
yeah.
someone like that?
Forgive someone like the Pope?
Mm-hmm.
I think I heard you ask a similar question
Correct.
not too long ago.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
So, all right. So, as a Christian male, I could forgive him, but that does not necessarily mean that you forget the action.
Right. Okay.
You know, it doesn't mean that you let him hang out with kids or that you let him hang. You know, it doesn't mean that you let him continue to do the things he was doing.
You let him share a bed like Michael.
Exactly.
Okay.
Okay. So.
Amazing.
Exactly.
Yes.
But yeah, you can forgive a guy if a guy is true, or gal for that matter, is truly repentant. That's really the kicker. What if somebody, here's a good question for you, and this will infuriate a few people too. So I have for a long time had a problem with the sex offender list. Okay. So now I'm not a proponent of sex offenders. I am not a sex offender. Okay.
Right.
Here's my issue. When you go to prison, if you have a 20-year term and you go to prison for 20 years, you are supposed to be fully restored to society. So if they put you on a list because of your crime, and a lot of people don't realize that if you urinate in public on a dumpster, you can be added to the sex offender list.
Well, that's true. Yeah.
There's a lot of stupid ways to get it added to that list, but now you are tagged with it forever. And in doing so, you are not fully restored. So why on earth would anybody be surprised when these guys repeat offend? Now they're let out and they're supposed to live a life that's clean of all that stuff, but at the same time they have to constantly be reminded. It's like the pink elephant. If I tell you not to think about a pink elephant, what do you think about? You think about a pink elephant.
Pink elephant.
So
Yeah.
So if you hang this stuff in front of these guys consistently, what do you think they're going to do? Does that mean that I've never checked the sex offender list myself? No, of course I have. But I have a problem with the premise. You're setting these guys and gals, for that matter, up for failure, and you haven't got a definitive way of saying that this guy is a true sex offender or this guy was added for bogus reasons.
Correct. Yeah, it's strange to see that.
Yeah.
It's strange to see that because they're going to be repeat offenders.
Yeah.
And of course, California, where I'm at.
Yep.
I don't like a lot of the things that they've done with the prison system. Nonviolent convictions that will have a chance at parole.
Now, what do you mean nonviolent convictions?
Well, that's the problem. A lot of these so-called non-violent crimes are people that have committed rape.
Oh, I gotcha.
And this comes from different branches of law enforcement who I've talked to about this issue.
Uh-huh.
And California, they completed a They lots of people that vote for different uh, legislations here. Looking at Governor Jerry Brown, who dropped the ball so many times here too. Just a lot of the people they s- they agreed with different propositions that are just asinine, and they were stupid
Yeah.
to do it. And California
Yeah.
keeps doing these really boneheaded decisions.
Well, I think California's got control issues, to be perfectly honest. It's like they want to be the most socialist state in the nation.
It seems like it. It doesn't make sense to me.
Nah, well,
A lot
control
of this,
seldom does.
a lot of these propositions that people sign off for, it's just like, okay, you want to pay more taxes.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah, nothing's free.
it's just really strange to see some of these propositions that passed.
Yeah, somebody's paying for it.
Terrible stuff, really. And of course, Michael, I was curious to ask you this.
Yeah.
Do you have any plans to perhaps release a book at any certain time in the future?
Actually, yeah, I'm working on one.
See, I thought so.
I think I said that in one of my podcasts, didn't I?
I don't think I've heard you say that, but I just had the strange feeling that you were going to write a book.
Oh, okay. Well, I wrote one book, but it had nothing to do with what I do right now. It was how I killed time in Iraq the first time.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So, but however, I am writing a book, and I am writing. Well, I'm not writing. I've got the title. I've got the chapters lined out. I just got to start, actually putting words to page.
So you got an idea of what you want to write, though?
Well, I've got an outline for it. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
Very cool.
And I'm actually going to start on it this month. That was the plan.
Oh, wow.
Yep.
Very, very good. Well, Michael, I do want to thank you tremendously for being a part of the program as well. It's been fascinating to talk to you and get your opinion on a lot of these things we talked about. I thought it was fun.
It was fun. I appreciate it very much. Thank you, Michael.
That was a good time, right?
Absolutely.
We'll definitely have to do this again, my friend.
That would be fun.
Okay, and before I let you go, definitely plug anything you'd like, get anything off your chest if you'd like. The stage is yours.
I appreciate that. So once again, you can find me on The Sedated Man. If you look up The Sedated Man on Google, you're going to find my podcast and my live feeds and my YouTube channel. And you can reach me at mike@thesedatedman.com. And if these are things you have questions on as far as a Christian male goes and you're just not sure where to go, contact me. That's what I'm here for.
Very good. And Michael, we will definitely touch base again in the very near future.
All right. I thank you.
All right, Michael, take care and sleep well and be safe.
You too. Appreciate it.
All right, God bless.
You too.
All right, take care. And there he goes, ladies and gentlemen. That was Michael Baker. Give him a round of applause there, folks. Oh, yeah. Clap it up. Clap it up. And before we take it home, much respect to our international listeners out there in Germany, the UK, Spain, Brazil, and Canada. I see many of you out there still listening. I also would like to thank Deprogrammed Radio and Coming Right Up. I also see you out there in the chat room. Definitely appreciate you great people out there. Really do love that. Seeing all of you still there. And of course, those who will catch this on a replay, I really do appreciate all of you being here. It's been such a great time. And yes, the music there, it is that time to say goodbye to all of you out there. I'm Michael Deacon. And with that said, the world is a mysterious place, and life itself is a mystery. Until next time, good night, everybody.